Oh, they've already started doing this and started preparing the ground, and you've heard the upswell of narratives already being prepared and spread. This is what the good old KGB doctrine is: never let any kind of message and never let any event go astray. There's always a way to obfuscate it and describe it from two sides. You can even, and don't forget, they are not obliged to tell the truth. They are not obliged to make a straight line. Actually, as a friend once wrote in a book, that contradiction is the raw material for active measures. They need that. They actually can thrive on that. The more we attach ourselves to this event, the more we speak about themselves. We don't talk about the things which we need to talk about. And we need to talk about ATACMS. We need to talk about ammunition. We don't need to talk about Prigozhin. It's completely irrelevant. He's dead. We don't need to talk about what Putin has done, because we've done this already for 24 hours thereafter. We don't need to talk about what took down the plane, whether it's a bomb or a SAM or whatever. It doesn't matter, because Putin killed him, or he had him killed, and he did it on his own territory. And the rest is a chimera. It's like, I don't know, soap opera. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Completely irrelevant. So will they use it in order to promote a narrative that the evil West has been conducive and created this and killed a Russian patriot? As Putin himself said, that obviously Prigozhin, whom he had named a traitor a few weeks beforehand, can't be a clean hero anymore. He called him talented and all that kind of jazz, whilst at the same time naming a successor who is right out of the active measures. And in this case, actually, very active measures from the T and Polonium troop, a GRU head, who will consolidate the effort of the GRU. Everything which we've said in that regard, everything which we've projected on this space since many, many months remains true. The Wagner Group was never a private military contractor. It was a GRU guided, sponsored, originated organization with more or less leeway in order to have sufficient plausible deniability as well as capacity to act. And therefore, when in Syria, they misbehaved, they got killed, and nobody helped them. And therefore, when Putin needed troops in order to be thrown into certain breaches, they did the job, and they also got killed. And it took them ages to gain any ground. The only thing relevant about this are the atrocities, because they have inflicted damage and terrible pain and death upon people. And this is what people should remember. The war criminal Prigozhin, the war criminal Utkin, and Cherekov, their counterintelligence chief, Rover, have been killed by someone in the Putin elite, directed by someone in the Putin circle or himself. Therefore, that's the end of it. Nothing else matters. Let's go back to ATACMS. Let's go back to DPICM. Let's go back to finding out what we can do to motivate the White House to send more equipment quicker. More equipment from pre-positioned stock, more ammunition, put more pressure on people, and why not, whilst you're at it, embargo certain segments of the Russian economy.
Yeah, there is again threat about Taurus within a German NATO coalition, let's say it, which has been also initialized because with a ask at least to with a will and desire for those and few good arguments. So if anyone would like to push this narrative a little bit forward, just search for free Taurus or free vet Taurus, and you will find a lot. And please share it.
Yeah, and just in order to tie in with this, the reason why many, many more narratives, just as he's highlighted, Marsilius, are being brought forward by Mordor's agents and the gullible Western socialist and idiot Marxist influenced and high quality fascist right idiots. I mean, really superb wonderful people on all these sides of the horseshoe, these bastards who support dictators and who are just in there for the money and the power and have absolutely nothing, which is in any shape or form directed at improving the lives of the free people of the West. Those gullibles, those who project the narratives, are already jumping yet on the bandwagon of another narrative, which is brought forward yet again, because don't forget, narratives, Russian narratives, never die. They may fade into the background, but they always come back. So at the moment today, the insidious, treacherous, and definitely anti-West, anti-capitalist German weekly magazine Der Spiegel, known from all the scandals in which they supported the Stasi and the KGB. And yes, they won a few cases against so-called libel and the likes, but essentially they later on had to confide, after Ruoff Alkstein had passed away, that yes, actually we did that. We did support these things. And we had journalists who were on the payroll of the half hour. And the funny thing is, nobody has said anything about it. But thank you. So Der Spiegel comes back today yet again with, drum roll, Nord Stream, and how this would change the world order. And why is that important, Vasilius? Because it could, yet of course, they could try again to taint the credibility, the trustworthiness, the reliability, and the overall status of Ukraine. That is what they tried to do. They've lost Prigozhin. Their approach was not quite helpful for general, say, consumption in the West. They're losing in the battlefield. They need to freeze the conflict. How do they do that? By attacking on 15, 20 different front lines with 30 different narratives, the same thing over and over and over again. Don't send weapons to Ukraine. That is what they want. That is the only thing they want. Every single thing they can do to tarnish the reputation of Ukraine and to highlight that, oh, it's already lost and they're never going to win and they can't win. That is what they will project, nothing else. So bring it on, dear people. If you find something in the media you want to discuss with us, we're here to dispel the bullshit. We are here to kill every single Russian narrative. Off you go.
Just for notice, I was always more of a Sterner guy, which both sits close to each other in Hamburg, and
they
I
both,
always
but they
have
both,
some.
Mercedes, they both did the same shit in the 1960s. The Stern did it with sex on the front page, and Spiegel did it with, say, very, very, very interesting demonic cartoons. But they both did one thing: they constantly lied. They constantly projected narratives coming from the Stasi, and we know this, and we know it from data, from the files, from the very few remaining files. And we know it because a number of cases were disclosed. And this is who they are, and it will never change.
There is a good reason both have red in their logo. You know what I mean?
Who founded Der Stern?
At least the company was Gruner. Yeah.
No. Henry
But
Nannen is the founding.
Yes. Henry Nannen, of course. Yes.
The founding editor of Der Stern. And who was he with beforehand? What did he do in the Second World War?
Now you can't catch me.
Haha.
I don't know.
Henry Nannen was a famous propagandist for the Nazi propaganda machine. And therefore, he was so easily falling into the same traps of narratives, which then the friendly Waffen-SS turned communist officers and the Bolshevik officers in the Soviet-occupied zone, misnomed the German Democratic Republic, nothing democratic about it, of course, fabricated. This is what it was. He had learned his tricks and trade amongst the Nazis, and he was an absolute, whilst he tried to say remedy and so redeem himself through his activities later, it is still Henry Nannen who had founded Der Stern, which then published the so-called Hitler diaries at the beginning of the 1980s. Yes. Exactly. So, it was Der Spiegel who created the conditions by means of seeding the initial narrative for the scandal which took down Franz Josef Strauss. where Strauss overreacted to Spiegel's assertions and allegations and the scandal, which was seeded by the HVA, the Stasi. So people should always remember what the origin stories are and what happened in the meantime. Der Spiegel, der Stern. One source, two different colors. Carrie.
Hello, Axel. How are you doing? Just to let you know, I was exactly waiting for you to do what you've just done, because I brought up the Spiegel and presented it in exactly the same way you did, in terms of let's throw a million narratives at the wall, see what sticks. This has come back again. This is just tiresome. Here we go again. But I didn't know enough history about that paper to really get into it. And so Robin was saying, Axel will be up later. Let's get the lowdown from him. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. Keep on going. I'm fascinated.
There we are. And people, if you are, and by the way, I do have currently an active subscription to that material, because it's a part of my job to read what the enemy writes, don't forget, but that's just what it is. Alex.
Thank you. Maybe you already discussed it, and in this case, I apologize, but I think it's worth mentioning that today in Perevalnoye in Crimea, there was a drone attack on the munition depot, and there are dozens of killed Russians, killed and wounded, and seriously damaged some equipment. This place was a location of 126 Brigade of Black Sea Fleet of Russia, and the operation was combined operation of Ukrainian SPU and VSU. Well, VSU is ZSU and SBU is security council or security services. So yeah, it looks like the attack was done by a swarm of drones, and which means that really any place in Crimea is now within the reach of at least drones. It's only a matter of scalability of those drones. And even though 60% statistically get down, the remainder does all the wonderful job. So yeah, way to go. Ukraine will be untenable very soon.
Thank you, Alex. Mrs. Chan, I suppose, or Mrs. Cha?
No, Chase Manhattan. Miss Chase.
Oh, hello, thank God. I just wanted to ask Axel if he is of the personal opinion that Prigozhin is dead. I've had a difficult time. You do think so?
Yes.
And what makes you think that?
People I know very well who feel extremely comfortable and who should therefore be good guidance for me.
Okay, I would. No.
Sorry.
I wouldn't want to,
You asked me a question, I gave you an answer.
Yeah. Because basically, I don't think he's dead. I think this whole thing is embarrassing.
Yeah, he's 100% dead.
If I might add something, I had also first I heard of it, similar impression to you, and was also thinking about movies where people disappear by a similar accident, just to please some narrative or just to make the life easier. But Since then I watched a ton of material which also underlined the theory, which is proving that it was assassination. But we have a request, and I cannot take MD Messier alarm up. Do you know something about? The panel is not full. Axel, can you help me out?
Yeah, I'll have a look.
Also,
Great.
you're a reliable panel member. I just thought it was extraordinary yesterday the way that Russia was so eager to release the flight manifest data and be like, we killed this plane, which I'm sure it did, and that's a rare win for its Air Force. Cute, love it. But I do feel like Africa has been the one place since the war began where Russia's standing has increased due to its own strategic diplomacy, not with the right people, I would argue. But
what makes you say that?
I think, honestly, this
where have they specifically gained?
South Africa, definitely.
Have they?
Yeah, and
when the South African ministers, ministers and their whole entourage, only part of which was allowed into Russia because of very specific South African gun issues. When their prime minister, when their president was in Moscow, he didn't quite tie the line, whilst they continue to be, and this is a long-standing tradition of the ANC-led governments, that they've always been pro-KGB, pro-communist, pro-Marxist, and now, of course, pro-dictatorship, because for them it's more about the money than the ideology. I don't see necessarily a strengthening of ties. I think it's just becoming transparent for many people. What we've had to contend with for many years, that the influence of Russia in South Africa has increased, but at the same time, it also hasn't become any bigger, because they can't really exchange goods with them further than they already do. And there is a part of South Africa which has nothing to do with the Russians. And the only thing which has increased in South Africa, and I think this is where you're therefore easily to be disproven, is that Russians are now buying up real estate in places which other people for security concerns have left. So what is happening is that Russian money is replacing other people's money on these pieces of real estate. They go there for security, and they will find out soon that there is no such thing as security in Pretoria, but especially in Joburg, and definitely also not in Cape Town anymore. And as soon as they're being killed by groups of hearty machete-wielding, unhappy, wandering workers from the slums, or from, say, grifting, thuggish mafia bands of people of whatever kind of Bantu origin, then they're gonna go apeshit. And I presume this will become just more violent, and then it'll burn out. But that's just South Africa. Where else in Africa would you say Russia has actually gained influence rather than just stabilize and try to, make amends?
Central African Republic, Niger, Burkina Faso.
Yeah, in Burkina Faso, they have done very little in addition. There's no further Russian troops. They actually took out a number of their helicopters from there. The GRU has been on site for a long time. Wagner's mercenaries have been sent there. There's a number of large Russian companies which have been dealing with them. But the junta in Burkina Faso has been as crazy as it is today for quite some time. And at the same time, Burkina Faso is not extremely decisive. It's much more important what Nigeria would do. And if Nigeria ever were to fall, then we would have to worry, but that's not the case. Niger, as we can see, that is not even a completely established coup. Yes, it is a show of weakness to an extent on the French part, but then we still have French soldiers there, and we do have American soldiers on site. I think that we will see that Nigeria and Senegal will clean house there over time, and that the already failing putsch or coup will be disintegrating very soon. I'd rather keep this open as a point where I could have said that.
No, I
could have
appreciate that.
said that I could. Where I could have said that I could concede that there is a delicate position that is in certain parts of the not so democratic Republic of Congo, where Russian influence, well, comes in waves. You don't kill some Chinese operators of an extraction company unless you have power. But at the same time, Russian soldiers and guards of 2 other facilities have been killed by some marauding troops of yet another local warlord recently without being punished, because the Russians simply can't support the logistics because they don't have enough helicopters. Now, you know where the lack of helicopters comes from, right?
Brzezinski.
They're using them elsewhere, in Syria and in Ukraine. So I would kindly back to differ. I think they are at the apogee of their power, or have been at the apogee of their power for quite some time. Tapering off will come, and they will drop like lead.
Okay, my final point is just that as a sometime caller, often problem, Axel, it has been lovely to overhear that you are reconciled, it seems, with your wife, and you have a doggy and access to children.
Reconciled? I've never been deconciled. On the contrary, no, not at all. It's just that some people have been sick and ill in the past. That's
Whatever
a
you're
different
doing
thing.
seems happy.
I am very happy when I find the dog of the neighbors before it gets killed by some person strangely driving up the road at night. That would have been terrible. And yes, that's a good deed if you can do one, to find the dog and make sure that it returns home.
Cute and in love and worked out with like a person who is serious. So I just wanted to point this out. Good job.
Avec plaisir. Merci. Carrie.
De rien. Toujours.
Hello, Axel. So I was just going to say I missed, because I was running around doing things, I missed the lady's name. But the other thing to remember is the optics. The Russians are so frighteningly good at the optics still, unfortunately. So a lot of what we were seeing recently in Niger hit the front pages. Obviously, real things were happening. However, they were very good at making sure they had their flags, the Russian flags. They had their songs. They'd bought all the right people. They'd stood them in front of the cameras. They'd taken the right images. And then they funnel that around in the way that they do in social media and to the vast majority of gullible journalists. So we are seeing a fabrication of what we feel is going on. Yes, there is stuff going on, but it can be presented as if it's more dramatic or significant than it truly is. So just always remember that that is also the Russian playbook.
Yep. Thank you very much for that. And if you have any further questions coming up this evening, this wonderful Friday evening in Europe, please do not fail to come up here and talk to us about it, because we will not do Friday night entertainment here. We are here only currently to do 2 things: dispel and dissect Russian narratives whilst providing good information on the one hand, and making sure that MriyaReport gets into everybody's mind for if and when you have a few ducats over and above what you need for food, drink, beer, gifts to children and your beloveds and the likes, and savings for a rainy day. Please make sure that some of those ducats make their way to assist Ukraine. And that's what MriyaReport is looking for. We're trying to make sure that we can collect funds and then bring them forward to those wonderful causes, such as most recently night vision goggles and equipment for people at the front lines, water purification filters, and equipment, helping, for example, the city administration of Kherson, and many, many more things, which we report on our main account as to what we're doing. So if and when you have a few of them leaving over, if you can crack that little piggy bank and you think that's a good idea, then please send them the way of MriyaReport.org. You can find the link on our page. Kerry.
I was just going to say, you are allowed to keep people engaged, Axel, in a way that you do very well when you get into an amusing mood. So I shall be expecting a few laughs from you. And if I don't get it, I'll try and think of a way to get them out of you, because you are allowed to enjoy yourself while you're doing this.
That is tremendous. I'm so delighted that I have now permission to laugh and make silly jokes here. I wasn't aware that this is possible, but there you go. Miss Sirius.
Yeah. Just wanted to.
You have the permit to laugh. I know that is hard in Hamburg, but you have the permit to laugh now.
I was looking up something, so sorry that I didn't get the joke. If you might repeat it for me.
Being distracted is not an excuse. It's like looking out the window in class. Carrie can tell you all about it because she sees this with her pupils all the time.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Carrie, what do we do with these people? Typically, what do you do with your children in class if and when they've been looking out the window, daydreaming and not here?
Honestly, Axel, that's what we do. I often sort of get them engaged through discussion and laughing and taking the mickey and setting challenges, throwing them under the bus, stuff that will keep them engaged and learning at the same time. So
you just shocked Massilius. He's now thinking that you're throwing the children under the bus.
I hope he knows that phrase. I don't physically take my children out and throw them under the bus.
Massilius is still shocked.
I just feel like it.
No, I'm relieved, but there is no meme for that.
All righty. In the meantime, we hear that yet another few hits and have actually occurred in the last 1.5 hours. A number of reports have come in that yet again, same errors which we've seen before, all en route to either Berdyansk and Melitopol, or alternatively in the regions northwest as well as onto Crimea have been hit. There is a gathering point close to Skadovsk, which have been hit, and we are waiting for confirmation since about an hour as to whether Ukrainian troops are making more than just steady advances in 2 locations at the Zaporizhia front. As soon as we can report that, we will do, but at the moment there is still a few things to be reconciled. If those of you who follow Telegram and Ukrainian Facebook, you will probably already have seen what has been reported in recent minutes about it. We are trying to assemble a good picture, and when we have it, then we will bring it to you.
Yes. Now we have a hand, because I was otherwise having some other topic, but I think we stay with this. Ilona, Ioana, you want to say something?
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Vasilius. I was just bringing news about another fire in Russia, because I think Mokers is occupied right now. So I'm very glad to be able to report this, because Mokers steals all the news about booms and fires. So there is another fire in Russia, and I have some explanations for this, either biological or maybe quantum physics, because it's yet another construction market, and we have seen a lot of them lately. burning. So maybe it's an epidemic, maybe it's a spooky action at a distance. We don't know for sure. The fact is that we have seen a lot of fires. Of course, there may be some other more or less interesting explanations for this, but I thought to report this because that's what we do here. Besides feeding cats, saving dogs, and fighting disinformation.
Feeding cats and serving dogs, that's a very important task. And by the way, we also do, of course, Maria Sportscasting. That is very dear to our heart. Not only do we talk about whitewashing in sports and trying to exclude people from Mordor, whether little Mordor or big Mordor, Belarus or Muscovy, but we like to make sure that they don't compete in international athletic and sports competitions. Unfortunately, we have not yet had the success we wish, but still. In the meantime, in the triple jump, women's triple jump at the World Championships in Budapest, Ukraine has qualified with the best jump in the final. And we will be following that closely. For those of you who are interested in it, sometimes a little bit of good news in between is quite nice. And we will almost likely bring you an update in, I'd say, about 20-25 minutes as to what we have gleaned from the non-existent confirmations quite yet as to the two vectors the Ukrainian armed forces have been pursuing. Ioana?
Yeah, what is funny about this championship in Budapest is, if I'm not mistaken, and I hope I'm not, the Russian and the Belarusian athletes are not there. They are not allowed. I think it has to do with the athletic federation or something like this. But it's in Budapest, and you know about the sympathies of Mr. Orban, and the Russian athletes are not there, and I'm very glad for that.
Yeah, the IAAF in that regard did make itself shall we say, conduct itself differently than the IOC. Also, in other news, we hear that the traffic on the Crimean Bridge has been yet again temporarily suspended. We are so sorry. We should be probably making this announcement every so often when it happens. It would be probably by now at least thrice daily.
Maybe we should announce when the traffic
Ioana.
is. Oh, actually, what is that funny when it's working? Ioana.
Yeah, thank you. So, according to the Russian sources, this evening, earlier on, they had intercepted 73 drones on the Russian territory. Of course, they include in the Russian territory the Donetsk, Lugansk, and Crimea, and 42 of those were in Crimea. So, no wonder that they stopped the traffic on the Kerch Bridge, because probably there is like a busy drone traffic above. And also, this morning, the airport in Moscow, the two airports in Moscow, were closed for a while, and there were some planes delayed, diverted, and so on. So it's basically daily. Each day, the airports in Moscow are closed. I guess it's kind of complicated to just air travel from Russia today.
You may remember, Ioana, earlier today in the morning, many people in Dnipro were so happy to have had one night without shelling. And unfortunately, just about 5 minutes ago, the alarms came up again, and there's warnings in Dnipro, in Dnipropetrovsk, that Shahed drones are supposedly approaching the city area or the outer area of the city.
I even heard that there are air alarms all over Ukraine, including the Russia-occupied territories, Crimea and Luhansk and the other one.
I just verified right now there are alerts in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 oblasts, including Lugansk, Donetsk, and Crimea. So there are alerts in Poltava, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhia region. So yeah, the Russians are doing this every day. So they are maintaining this, even if there are no drones, but probably there are. so people should go to shelter. They are just trying to maintain this pressure on Ukrainian people. So that's one of the reasons I'm glad that they are feeling some of this pressure themselves, even if Ukrainians were very careful in not to hit civilian buildings and so on. So they practically targeted just airports, infrastructure, and office buildings while they were empty. I think it's important to specify this. No people inside, not like the Russians that were targeting train stations and supermarkets and places where help was given to people, invincibility points and so on, while people were gathering there. So I think there is a difference. But also I think that the Russians should feel this themselves.
Yes, 100%. They should finally get served what they have served out by themselves too, because it's also bringing fruits. Lately, I saw a very interesting video. I might look it up, where actually Russians on the street has been interviewed, and some of them, believe it or not, have actually spoken out that they understand. They have been asked if they actually what they think about Moscow being hit right now, and those which has been interviewed shared the opinion that they think that Ukraine has a full right to do so after what they have done. So there are still some good people, and they also seem to share the opinion to help Ukraine and provide everything they need so that it can be brought to an end by Russia facing the truth that they cannot win this. Joanna, please.
Yeah, sorry to just jump in with every information that you have. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Russians are crying out loud that these are terrorist acts from the Ukrainian side, and they are just whining and shouting and telling everybody, look what they do, because Ukraine is targeting some bridge or some building that is empty with a small drone that is incapable of doing much damage, let's be honest. And even UN reacted yesterday and condemned the attacks on Russian territory. Where was UN when the Russians bombed the train station in Kramatorsk or the apartment building in the Dnipro? You know, that apartment building with a big hole in the middle and with tens of people that died that day. Where was UN when Russia did this in other places, in Chernihiv, for example? They did condemn some attacks, like the one in Odessa, because it was a UN cultural site, and I believe maybe another one or two, but there were tens of attacks like this on Ukrainian civilian buildings from Russia. Where was UN then? Why are they not more like condemning this?
Yes, I fully agree, and not only UN, also Amnesty International had brought bad light on itself by similarly condemning the Ukrainians for fighting where also civilians are living, but then again, the Russians are doing the same on their soil, and they are not condemning it. So there are questions. There are really hard questions which we should also ask, since those companies and non-government organizations are actually residing here, and they should provide answer to those questions.
I really don't have any hopes about Amnesty International and also about Red Cross, because we have seen what they've done. When Russia had taken prisoners, Red Cross was distributing blankets and cups with the Russian symbols, something like this. I don't remember exactly the news, but certainly there was a news like this last year. So instead of condemning this, and instead of being or making sure that those prisoners are treated humanely and according to the Geneva Convention, they were distributing some blankets. Yeah, thank you.
It's even worse. There are some reports about even their connections to the deportation of the children from Ukraine, which I think those are actually part of an ongoing investigation. So we will not find a lot of news. Rather, besides that, there are investigations. But yeah, they didn't, as you say in Germany, bring at least translated, bring a best light on themselves in this conflict, in this war.
The Red Cross in Belarus practically admitted that they were participating in the deportation of the children.
Yes, and there have been also some figures which has been especially prominent about it, and I think it was also some guy who, at least without hair, which I read about, but I forgot. I think he was even German, from the German division, but I will need to look it up before I spread maybe false information. Then, in the meantime, if you have at least finalize your statement, then I would go to Alex. Is it okay, Joanna?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Alex, please.
I was thinking about this Amnesty International and International Red Cross. They will have to answer some difficult questions, after war is over. I don't think we should let them go like that. I don't know how long they are on why were they created, what's their mission statement, but it's time to change a few things there.
Yeah, I'm at least regarding Red Cross. They have also a quite dark history in the Second World War already. So
yeah, I know. And they said sorry, and and they were like, never again. I'm sure they repeated it many times, and even probably paid out a few $100 or whatever. But they are so big and collect so much money, and it's not honestly about money. As long as they were able to do pretty much anything, but it looks like they are like useless, totally useless. I doubt they can even tell you how many Ukrainians are in a Russian prison, because not just soldiers, but Russia was already also deporting like civilians, and we do not know where they are, and we do not know what are their conditions, and we do not know anything. And that is directly something Red Cross said they would be looking after. I mean, after all, they are getting paid for this stuff. It's they need to. Yeah, quite a few things will have to be changed and first answered.
That's true, but then again, I think there are, maybe to advocate a little bit for them, they are in a position where they need to kind of not interfere too much with the opponent, with the aggressor, in such a way that they get killed themselves. So they need to play by some terms for at least being able to provide help, if it's help they are providing. first thing you said that they don't know who has been transported there where. I think that's actually the only good thing which might come out of it, besides what they have might done, what has been good. That their books are probably well written, and at least those notes after the war might prove being helpful. That's at least my hope.
Yeah, like I said, there will be some questions will have to be answered, and I mean, if there is any good, then we can discuss whether it's whether it's worth it, or if any things need to be changed, or if maybe we even need them, the way they are, and maybe it's part of the security to not to say anything, but I heard absolutely nothing about the activity. And maybe it's they are doing something important. I don't know. But after the war, we'll have to. Well, there will be a lot of things to do after the war, honestly. If anybody will have time for all that stuff. But it's quite. Well, anyway. You need army, like any nation needs army. Like the best thing, the best deterrent is to have army, so that Russians knew that they would lose. It's not that this is delusional. 3 days or 3 years or 30 years for that purpose. Like, look at how badly these guys in Moscow overestimated their ability. How and Western's hypocrisy and fear, and underestimated Ukrainian resolve. Like, they missed it anywhere they could. They were totally delusional, and not that I'm trying to make them better. Anytime in future, I want them to die right now, so that they go into distant past, like something people will speak about, like Empire of Xerxes. Do you know who was Xerxes? I have no idea.
Of course, of course we know. We all went to school, Alex. Please.
Okay. All right. So Putin will join that river of Leta.
Seriously, really, are you asking us about classics? No, hopefully not. Right. And back to the citizens. So, Joanna, you're there, but I have to call upon Anda because Anda has news from Budapest.
Hi, hello, good evening. Well, Ukraine has silver in triple jump for women. She started, Marina, it's her name. She started with the first jump, 15 meters, and she was surpassed by Venezuela in the last jump. But it's still an amazing result for Ukraine. And it's been an amazing contest for her.
Excellent. So 1 down, more to go. Anda, do me a favor, please make sure that we have this medal table and that we can follow what our Ukrainian friends are doing. Obviously, this brings a lot of say pride and joy to Ukraine at this point in time where the nation is in peril and fighting, and to therefore keep it up, keep us informed. Thank you very much. Joanna.
Yeah, I had a change of the subject. In fact, because I discovered in the Russian news, I didn't look for the last 2 hours. and apparently the black boxes for the plane were found, for Prigozhin's plane. They are not saying much, just that they have found the boxes, and the investigators will do everything necessary. And also, I have seen a video on Twitter. Apparently, they found the investigator found the one wing of the plane, and they were transporting it very carefully to be well studied by dragging it on the ground to the forest ground. I never seen something like this for a crash site. I know that usually people in those white suits come and they are very careful not to contaminate anything and to just preserve the evidence the best possible. Well, in the video that surfaced, I don't know if it's really true, but I believe it is. They are just dragging it through the forest like this, and it's kind of amazing to see that. I don't know. Does it seem normal to you?
Actually, Joanna, we've seen it before, and also from a Russian side, where there was a plane crash already in Smolensk once, and the investigation looked very similar. It was also performed by the Russians, by the way. So yes.
Yeah, so they already know what happened.
Inconclusive. But the thing is, in Smolensk, Joanna, I think, Vasilius, I remember that it was inconclusive. Did they not say later on pilot error?
That was the official statement from Moscow, and they also didn't release the black box to Poland, which, of course, it was the Poles who died there, but our PM at the time has agreed on the lead, putting the lead into actually the same guys. It was already Peskov was the spokesman, Shoigu was leading the investigation, and Putin was, of course, there to express his condolences. So we've seen it once, yes.
Anyway, by the way they are conducting this collection of evidence, they will probably conclude that some vicious mushroom spores took the plane down, because, you know.
It might be also fog or a tree, as I remember. Those are hot candidates.
Yeah, some sticks, some, yeah.
Sticks? I thought sticks is what the Ukrainians are now using to deter Russian drones.
Yes, I've seen it. It's amazing. But yeah, physics work. Maybe they were trying to replicate it on a plane size, you know, to see if it works for them. So they throw a stick and what to see? The plane is down.
Sorry, chaps, I have to educate Shaggy because he really has no idea how to pour a proper Weizen beer.
Oh, very slowly on the side.
Oh, no,
Over
there are
glass.
more versions. There's more versions than that.
And
if you're really good, you
rotate.
can do no. If you're really good, 2 wet glasses, lay them sideways, take the bottles, swivel them around, and take the bottles out. But for that, the Weiss beer needs to be absolutely bloody fresh in it, and that works. And you can do this, and I can show you how to do it. Other than that, of course, you skip it and you tilt it. But hey, what should I do? Shaggy just doesn't know how to do it.
He's coming up. So
yeah,
you
it doesn't matter whether he comes up or not. If he can't pour an Erdinger Weissbier because he takes a pint glass, if you take a non-suitable glass, you have to pour it even more carefully. And as Vasilius quite rightly said, you have to do it in a 30 degree angle, and then you very slowly tilt it upwards. And by the way, you need to swivel the bottle in between because you have to take it out later, and you have to make sure that the yeast actually gets into the glass. From what I can see from your photo, Shaggy, you have completely failed.
In my defense, I was co-hosting at the time, just at the end of it, so I was holding the phone.
I can do this with one hand and the glass on top of it. Come on, that's not an excuse. You and I need to do a proper, sensible beer tasting and beer pouring session. I'll get you there.
Yeah, but I'm guessing you wouldn't have used a glass which had just had orange juice in it, and which you just kind of.
I can put this into oversized wine glasses. I can show you how to pour this into a Bordeaux glass, and it works.
All right. Fair enough. Then, I mean, all you have to do is just have a little bit of patience, wait a bit of time till it's gone down, and then you can pour the rest in, which I did, and then it looks like a proper English beer.
Okay, there's no such. Okay, whatever. If you look at the bottle, is there still something at the bottom of the bottle?
Oh, let me go to the kitchen and have a little look. I mean, I was giving it a bit of a swill round when I was doing it. That's what I do, give it a bit of a swill round every now and again just to get that that stuff at the bottom.
You need to definitely swivel around because the stuff, which you call it at the bottom, is actually what is absolutely vital for the beer to taste well.
Oh yeah, there's definitely
the remaining yeast.
Yeah, there's nothing in the bottom of the bottle. I'm looking at it now. There's definitely nothing in the bottom.
I'm glad to hear that you did this thing at least right. Okay, one down to 2.5 things more to go.
All right. 1 second.
Stay with us. Yes, Vasilius, please.
Thank you. Before we go to Joanna, Shaggy, I would like to give you a reason to cheer on with your beer. There are actually 11 children which has been taken away from Russia and brought to Ukraine back. Yeah, great news.
Oh, that's
Those
brilliant.
are probably the most important.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's definitely more important than how I pour beer. Yeah, lovely.
Thank you. Joanna.
Yeah, talking about beer, Axel and Vasilias, have you seen the video, the tweet that I sent you in the back channel? Apparently, the Portuguese president, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, decided to have a beer in the center of Kiev on an open terrace, and he's casually drinking beer there. The environment seems quite nice. It's pleasant. And yeah, it's amazing to see that. Really amazing.
Well, if a German politician of stature would have gone to Kiev, and that has only happened once yet, you probably would see the very same thing. What is, however, good is, of course, the Portuguese politician is completely comfortable doing this with only, as it seems, at least 2 visible security guards. But there you go. That's fine. No, glad to see that the weather is good and you can sit down and have a decent pint of beer and have a chat about a beer. Because if you can't chat about a glass of wine or say over a beer, then it's not worth discussing. Bearded, I can see you connecting, but you're not coming up. It's probably the end of the frog time, or is it the bird time? I forgot. Yeah, no, the end of the bird time. Bearded, you are connecting. Please restart your app. Jesus. Okay, whilst Bearded is doing this, Alex.
Yeah, anybody knows results of visit from Portuguese president other than drinking beer in Kiev?
I believe Portugal.
You have the whole list? There was something which they already donated.
No, I don't have the list right now, but I know that they offered to train F-16 pilots, which is again something significant. I can search for the package because they offer the military package to Ukraine. I don't have the details right now.
All righty. I thought that besides the training commitment and the likes that Portugal, but we should probably ask Nuno about it. Now there's an error adding Brit. I don't know what's going on with him. Okay, I'll tell him to restart his app again. It's a thing with these old tanks, when these tank tracks become old and rusty and they are not taken care of as diligently and patiently and with such dedication and glee, and of course a lot of fat as they should, and good oils as once before, then things get rusty and evidently are connecting. Bearded, you are connecting. Hopefully that works now. Ha! There you go. All right. Bearded.
Hello. What can I do for you?
Please, I had 3 times an error adding him. So Bearded, if you hear us,
I can hear him, Vasilius.
Oh, sorry. Then I'm gone.
Yes, please. Bearded, shoot.
What am I shooting? Sorry.
south of Robotyne, southeast of Robotyne, actually, and as I understand, also southwest of Wuhledar.
Advancing south, I assume.
Did you say sci-fi? Okay. My fortune teller tells me that Bearded needs to restart his app. Massilius, you had something else whilst you couldn't hear him.
No, I don't, but I wanted to ask if I also need to restart then, because I couldn't hear him.
It is a Bearded thing. As long as you can hear me and myself and I and all three of us, it's fine.
Yeah.
Other than that, Shaggy, can you say a word and tease Massilius a little bit about his taste in beer?
I'll just find a
Don't
button.
I need
Yeah.
someone.
Beer. Weiss beer.
Yeah.
Weiss beer. Weiss beer.
That very good. I hear Weiss beer. Weiss.
Perfect. Okay. MriyaReport Friday night audio testing. Weiss beer. 1, 2, 3.
Weiss beer confirmed.
Which, by the way, highlights to me I should go and get myself a proper Pilsner Urquell now from the fridge, because it is 22:22. It is 22 minutes past 10 p.m. That is way beyond the yard arm, or above the yard arm, out of the yard arm, off the yard arm. It's more than enough time, and I will have a beer now. I'll be right back.
Zdrowie.
Oh dear. Oh dear. It's going downhill from here, Massilius. It's all up to you.
No problem. I think I can handle it. Joanna, please. And after Joanna, Alex. And I hope I did get the order right, because Alex is yellow. And then insects.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear
but
you,
it was
but
Joanna first.
Joanna is
I'm just walking.
Yeah, thank you.
Am I on?
Insects, would you mind please to put up your hand? You know how it goes, I assume? You go on the heart and then exactly, perfect. Then Joanna, Alex, and then it's your turn. Thank you.
Okay, so I didn't find the details about the package from Portugal, but there were some firsts from the Portuguese president in his visit in Kiev. First of all, he had a speech and he spoke for more than a minute in Ukrainian, and he was applauded by the audience, who was surprised. Even President Zelensky was surprised. Second, he is the first international leader that is visiting a trench. He went into a trench. Like literally, he went into a trench. So this was interesting. I don't have the details about the package. Apparently, there is cooperation on the tank coalition. There is cooperation on F-16 coalition. Also, they offered some vehicles for medical aid, some demining, and also on the level of political cooperation, they offered to help President Zelensky with contacts with Latin America and also work together for the grain deal, or at least for the export of Ukrainian grain. So I don't have really a list of military equipment that will be delivered by Portugal, but I thought that these little details are interesting. And thank you. Now I'll be gone.
Thank you, Joanna. See you later then. Alex.
Yeah, there is an announcement from Crimean Tatar battalions. We knew that they are there in Ukraine, but did not have a lot of information about them. But they are now announcing that they will be taking volunteers. So looks like they plan to play more active role in liberation of Crimea. Crimean Tatar battalion.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time, right, in the history, where they have been quite active there, and they are not called Crimean Tatars for a reason. Yeah, thank you for that,
They are
Alex.
called Crimean Tatars for a reason.
That's what I meant.
You just inverted it.
Did I?
It's all right. Yes, it was hilarious.
Sorry.
It's all right. No worries.
Okay.
Stick around. Shall we go to Intex?
Yes, please.
And in the meantime,
All right.
Intex, sorry, Bearded, I'm sure you can hear us somewhere. And if you can't, we've elevated you 6 times. 7th, and you're out. Intex, carry on.
Hi. I'm just walking up the beach, so sorry if there's a bit of wind. Yeah, so I don't know if you've covered it before, possibly earlier, and I might have missed it. But I was thinking about this whole Putin assassin Prigozhin and what that kind of means, you know, after the dust settles down. And my concern was, does it mean that effectively Putin takes over Wagner? And isn't that a bad thing and a dangerous thing? And shouldn't that be something that we're worried about, or have I got that wrong? That's all.
Yes, you sorry. This is it is not consistent with the more complex picture which actually has unfolded. Wagner PMC has never been a private military company. Wagner PMC, whilst fronted by a former and rather incompetent Spetsnaz-trained shafted officer Utkin, and who fancied fascist symbols more than anyone should ever have done, as you would have seen probably from his massive amount of tattoos. Mr. Utkin, with his sadistic mindset and military training, and the thug Prigozhin were used as figureheads to generate plausible deniability when building out the GRU sponsored, funded, directed, and coordinated effort of troops which they wouldn't want to pay for in Russian service, and they wouldn't want to send into Africa and the Middle East if they couldn't deny that these were definitely different troops. They took one out of the playbook of real private military contractors in order to gain exactly that. There is no such, there's therefore also no aggravation in the consolidation of the power structure within what has been Wagner and has already been renamed a few weeks ago Concord, if you will have followed it. And many of the so-called officers, meaning the capos within Wagner, have already been replaced. Those who've been performing these tasks, almost likely, unless they pledge full allegiance and will have found ways to ingratiate themselves with the GRU again, will almost likely be eliminated anyway. There's nothing bad in that at all. It's just a reorganization within Mordor, and in that regard has absolutely no impact whatsoever. But thank you.
Okay, so Putin already had more or less direct control over Wagner, and this doesn't really change.
Wagner was founded by the GRU, sponsored by the GRU, directed by the GRU, always directly aligned and controlled. Just because you had figureheads who were there in order to make money and make sure that they could generate money for the overall crime family and were given some leeway does not mean that they were in charge. People in the West need to understand that Russia functions differently than other places. This is not the Irish mafia of the 1920s.
It's the same. If my also interrupt, it's the same like Gazprom. It's not a free company which does only care about making business with their product, but they are also the head of this company is also Putin, more or less, and the one running it officially is more just a puppet, with a telephone, and each important decision he needs to call the real boss.
Whereby one has to say that, of course, running a concern of the size of what has been consolidated into Gazprom is what Alexei Miller and his people are doing reasonably well, given the fact that they're reasonably decent managers within their own dictatorial setup. So, but that's a different ballgame. In any event, the centralization and the diktat of the oprichnina, the ruling elite, remains in place. Nothing has changed. It's only playing with the Western perception thereof. Fear, gloom, doom, nukes, yoo-hoo. No problem. Carry on. Nothing to see here. Carrie.
Hello? I've got one more point. Sorry.
Yes, but can we, Insects, can we do this after Carrie? Because she had her hand up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Carrie.
Thanks, Axel. There was a couple of things actually. I first put my hand up because I was interested in hearing yours and Vasilius' thoughts on the following point, but also the group here generally, which is this is about the bigger messaging and the multi-layered messaging that comes from the destruction of the Wagner graves. So that was my first thing. I'll probably leave it there for the moment, but I wanted to then
it's
come
symbolism.
back to
Carrie, it's symbolism. It's pure symbolism. It's trying to
completely.
eradicate the traces and shrines of what was built out as a somewhat cultish structure within Wagner. So there you go. Nothing to see here. Irrelevant. It's just the Soviets taking someone out of the picture next to Putin. So all the pictures of Prigozhin standing, sitting, walking next to Putin are gone. Therefore, all the symbols, all the graves are gone. That's it. Nothing unusual.
But
Come
Axel,
on, Carrie, if you were a dictator in Russia, you would do the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm
There you go.
thinking, I suppose I'm asking to not asking you, but of the space of us. That is setting aside how we feel about Wagner, completely appreciating what you're saying and agreeing with you. At the same time, I think there is something profoundly disgusting about such an act when you think about, which I'm not surprised by. You know, it's not a shock, but I find it shocking when you think about how we in free democracies respect eternally our war graves and how people will travel, you know, right till the end of their lives. If they have served, they will go back for as long as they are physically able to get there, to go, to sit, to remember, to talk to people that they served with, who are their brothers in arms.
Then, of course, but this is a different situation. These are not even soldiers. These are just thugs and war criminals, people who committed massive atrocities. It's just, we also, don't forget, we sincerely limit the impact of, and I think even our Italian friends have done so. I don't think that you will see a whole graveyard of Waffen SS officers who've been in charge of the Holocaust where people would go to. I don't really care. I'm quite happy with them not having their specific concentration camp reunion cemetery. I think it's good that we don't have it. Individuals have to be buried. That's a different thing, and we deal with that. But in this case, I couldn't care less what they do in Russia with their war criminals. Really, seriously, I don't.
I think I'm setting it as a counterpoint of
but then again, that we are different from them. That's completely clear, isn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose what I'm saying is that is it all over, isn't it? If you're looking for
I get
multiple,
you. No, you're right.
Yeah, it is so different. Concrete it over, remove it. Those are still human bodies. We do not do things like this, and that is a profound example.
Well, they used bulldozers in Mariupol to take down the buildings and then eradicate everything. And people almost likely were in many forms in decomposing state, most likely in those cellars. And they were dead. And there are many dead bodies in those houses. And they just moved them away. So there you go. That's Russia for you. Anyway, let's go to insects. He had his hand up beforehand. Insects, give us another mosquito
Yes.
slide.
Sorry. So, thank you. No, I just wanted to confirm that in my understanding in my own head. So basically, Putin's assassinating Prigozhin to say, "I'm the Don." You know, that's it. That's my message. And it's an internal kind of power struggle or whatever, just to get him out of the way because of, you know, what he had with Prigozhin. I don't understand why Prigozhin didn't see it coming, and that, you know, makes me think like maybe he is, you know, living in South America or whatever.
No, he had nowhere else to go. It's very straightforward and simple, insects. Okay, Prigozhin was a marked man and had nowhere else to go to. There was no place outside of Russia which would have been safe. There was absolutely no place in the world where he would have been safe. There would have been, outside of Russian borders, Ukrainian GUR would have found him.
All right.
Definitely.
All right.
And he either would have survived that, or he would have died. Had he survived whatever happens when snatching him, he would have gone to the International Criminal Court. And that's fine. In Belarus and in Russia, he was a marked man, and he was, after he had literally tried to overthrow the Putin elite. It's not just one person. You have to understand, the Oprichnina is not one person. It's a whole large clique of people, of which Putin is one of them, meaning the main figurehead, but he is one of them. And Prigozhin stood against him, and publicly, and Putin called him a traitor on public television. He was a marked man. He was a dead man walking, quite literally. And he may have tried to find a way to work his way out by means of bribing everyone, and even trying to offer Putin more tribute, more money from Russia, from Africa and the likes. But it did not help. It did not work. And Putin's government, Putin's clique, executed their strategy of making sure that every traitor gets killed.
And also, Axel, if I might add, Putin actually also said once that this is the only thing that he will never pardon if someone betrays him. So he knew very well that he had one chance actually when he made this standoff against Putin. And if you make such thing, you better make sure you kill the boss. Otherwise, it's only a portion of time and which you buy, and then he will gets to you. And there is also one very interesting video where he is talking before actually the flight, and more or less make it's obvious that he is scared and that he already counts with what might come upon him. But yes, there is a new speaker.
I was just about to say, it's very simple and straightforward, insects. Prigozhin is dead. Putin's clique has asserted themselves. They nevertheless are almost likely weaker. We'll see how it goes. And there will be a few more people falling. Other than that, we're not interested in Prigozhin anymore. He's gone.
Fair enough. Okay, if you're an average Wagner soldier, if there's such a thing, what is your mindset at this point?
Fear.
Okay. Good.
All right.
Thank you. I'll drop down. Thanks.
That's much appreciated. Thank you. Clyde.
Thank you. This Prigozhin thing, and I just want to put this as a... You closed it?
We just closed it. Yeah, we closed it. There's nothing to be discussing anymore. We know that he is dead. We know that Utkin is dead. We know that Chelyakov is dead. So the three main people who were there are dead. The Putin elite reasserted themselves. They got rid of him. It's completely irrelevant. The case is over. The whole narrative is being discussed and constantly being regurgitated because people are not focused on what really matters. And that is creating more support for Ukraine, having ammunition and weapon systems at hand in order to win. And that Ukraine is actually making headway. The Russians are currently churning out narratives and continuing to talk have us talk about and focus on Prigozhin, whilst he does not matter. It's completely irrelevant.
Okay. I got an alternative question then that you'll like a lot better.
Yes, please.
Okay. Regarding the Swedish planes, the report, there was suggestions at least that Sweden had said that they're willing to provide their planes as soon as they're members of NATO. What does that really mean regarding the dynamics of getting that deal finally done? Does it affect it? Does it make any difference? Does it give more leverage to the people that are holding it back?
Okay. No, yes, no. Why? When you say there is, okay, this is a quote which has come up in the also now in the US media, is a quote from a discussion and interview with the leadership of the Socialist Party in Sweden, so-called Social Democrats, but they are ultimately socialist. They were in power before, they lost the majority. They were terrible when in power, and they were dithering when in power. And they were not making the right steps. They were also the ones who were dithering when the Finns already were moving forward to apply for NATO. The Social Democrats, yet again, have fallen back into their old reflexes whilst trying to read the public momentum and trying to read what the audience would like. They say, oh, we should only do this if and when we are already in NATO. They've already made their peace with the fact that Sweden is now finally coming into NATO. But then, of course, they want to be very, very careful, risk averse. You could say they want to be Scholzing. They are actually Scholzing. Does it matter? No, it does not. They don't have a majority. They are not in government. Nobody cares. If the government in Sweden has any cojones, they can push this through without even having to listen to these people. They can just go through, walk into parliament or walk across the square in front of the prime minister's office and say, nah. It doesn't matter. The socialists in Sweden currently, fortunately, do not matter. Then John will come up and talk about the fact that there is a couple of mediaites and a couple of investors in Sweden, a couple of senior figures, and there's a couple of the conservatives who would really also think that it's very important that we have to be in NATO first. Yes, but still, the only thing which matters is, can the Swedish coalition, by looking down, find its balls? And when it finds its balls, it does what it needs to do. But I will tell you that Den John will come up and tell you all about it.
One last thing
So
is,
stay with
I
us.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Den John, do you want to add anything for Clyde?
Yeah, I hate to be the party pooper, but even the defense minister said the same thing. And
yes, because he's a weakling, but he doesn't.
Yeah,
matter.
but yeah, it is. But also, I think it's kind of. I don't know how to put this, but
by the way, I said that some of the conservatives have already moved in that direction because they're all risk averse.
Yeah, of course, and in a way, maybe they should be. But the thing is that there's 3,000 other planes, and now we're looking at 100 somewhere, which I would love for a few of those to be given away. But I think they're looking at the bigger picture. Why is 3,000 planes held back? And from a country which is not in NATO. I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just looking at it how it looks from what I hear from the politicians.
Okay, then John, tell me.
I hate to be a politician, but yes.
Tell me one thing. No, you're not. You're not. Your party's in power. They do love entitlements. They want to make sure that people remain unemployed, right?
Not.
They're happy if people are taking money from the government, so that essentially they have people who are.
I think it was
dependent on them, right? That's the reason.
Before it was like that, yes. Not now, I think.
Okay, I'm just saying, because that would make then sense for the Socialist Party to say so, because of course, if you were to send Gripens, you might actually have in your weapon system manufacturing grouping at least 20 companies who all contribute to the Gripens being great and wonderful and a great export article. If you had actually a combat aircraft, battle tested and successful and shown to be effective, In the biggest single conventional war since 1945 on European soil, whilst everybody is wondering as to what is it with these Americans and their stupid fucking planes? What is it with these Europeans and their stupid Eurofighters? What is it with all these people?
Yeah, no.
Do they not want to win? Do they not want to sell? So in this case, you would think if you have a conservative government now in Sweden, I mean, at least some people who might believe in capitalism, just a little bit, a teeny little bit, not the kind of IKEA structured, pick, pack, pull, and have a little assembly line kind of only furniture, but real capitalism.
Okay.
I mean, industrial capitalism.
Axel.
If you had those people in Sweden, do you have those in Sweden?
I think so. But actually,
you do.
But IKEA is kind of capitalist. Actually, it's not really socialist. It's kind of a big.
Yeah, I think Mr. Comfort's political leanings are a little bit more dictatorial than
that. But anyway, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if it's that insidious. I really don't know.
But do you want to give an answer to Clyde as to why the Swedes don't want to succeed in having a battle-tested weapon system like the Gripen to be perceived as being worthy of buying? I mean, you want to sell them damn planes, right?
Yeah, of course.
This is what you want. You want to make money.
Of course.
Is there someone in Sweden who wants to make fucking money now, finally?
I think, I think there's some people making money, but I think you're right to some extent, probably. But I don't think it's only that. I really don't think it's only that. I think this is also kind of, which would be a little bit insidious. This is kind of a leverage to get that fucking deal in the bank.
So you leverage Ukrainian lives against Sweden being formally in NATO.
I'm not doing that.
That would be quite despicable, I would say.
Well, I'm not saying that, Axel, that I'm doing that. I'm not saying I'm agreeing to that. I'm just saying what's going on.
I know, but so what you're saying is that some of the Swedish politicians are acting despicably.
It could be, yeah. I'm not saying they're doing it, but that could be a reason. Definitely. And
okay, Clyde, did you hear this? Hold on one, John. I need you for this further. Clyde, did you hear this?
Yeah, I did. I heard. It's very. I think it's frustrating, but it's hard as an American to have any criticism of it because we've got F-16s coming out of our ears that should have been there a year ago. So, I mean, who are we to talk about shortening the war and saving Ukrainian lives when we got what's going on with ATACMS and F-16s in the United States? So, the other thing that seems really important is that these planes would take much less time to get into theater, is my understanding. Correct? The characteristics of learning how to the plane itself would be easier quicker for Ukrainians to take into their Air Force, learn how to fly and be doing it and be flying them and flying missions with them. That the characteristics of the plane make it better for a quicker transfer. Is that correct?
We do not know that because it hasn't been battle tested. There were assumptions, indications, and considerations in that regard, but at the same time, nobody really knows.
Okay, and then George said something about he thought even compared to F-16s that for taking off on short runways, roads, dirt strips and all that. He thought that was that this plane was tailor-made for a Ukrainian quick start Air Force.
Yeah, right. I love George. I really love George, and I love the fact that the man has been serving in the army. Clyde, if you get my drift. Hop, let's talk about
yeah, I get your drift. I do. I get your drift. I got it. I'm laughing here.
It's fine. I'm just saying, I love my George, and he's right on many things. And yes, there is technically a possibility that the capabilities of the Gripen can be used neatly, but I can attest to the fact, because I've seen it, and I've seen it live, that F-16s and a few other Fs have taken off from normal, what you would call an interstate or a highway. We would call it Autobahn, or from a bloody parkway next to the friggin' Singapore main highway. I've seen this in other places, and I think, Hop, you would have seen a few planes in Taiwan and in Japan come off roads, right?
Yeah, that's affirmative. The F-16 may not be quite as purpose designed as the Gripen for this very, very specific and limited scenario, but we're talking about, you know, a capability that was designed by a country that anticipated having all their air bases wiped out early on and dispersing their forces for the specific reason of being able to fight back after the first wave. And we're way past that in the Ukrainian theater of operation. What we're really dealing with here is if you wanted to differentiate the F-16 from the Gripen, I'm not looking at wingspan, weight, weapons carriage, or any of that stuff. I'm looking at numbers, and the numbers say that many foreign countries have been trained to fly the F-16. A knowledge base exists in many different languages, have been converted. They have found a way around it to get these pilot groups up to speed in English. So any advantage other than geographical location doesn't really exist. There is a knowledge base out there that is much broader for the F-16, and I would argue that would facilitate training because there's a lot more people who maybe don't have English as their first language, English as a second language, that are trained on the F-16 and can facilitate training to another nation that's going to be doing it as English as a second language. So, you know, taking all the capabilities out of the picture and just looking at numbers and availability, I don't actually think there's a difference. And the F-16 might have a small advantage other than the fact that Uncle Sam won't let go of the purse strings.
Thank you very much for highlighting this. And I would have added one more thing. Clyde, you do need the capability to say smørrebrød røm pum 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 whilst taking off. That's difficult. Not every Ukrainian can do that.
I'll bet not.
Dan John, you want to follow up? Is there anything else which we need to know from the Swedish cooking school of Gripen?
Regarding smørrebrød, I hate to be the party pooper again. The Danes never bought the Gripen, unfortunately. I think they looked at it. Smørrebrød is Danish, but it's almost the same. Smørgås. But otherwise, sorry to smack you down.
No. But given the fact that you never knew who your kings were.
Yeah, of course. We still believe he might be Danish, but because he came from kind of the south over the ocean, so yeah. Anyway, I think Hop said it. I mean, I think that the biggest problem here is numbers, because in Sweden we have, like, I don't know, is it 100 now or something, and then you have Hungary. Don't think they would do much to help with training and so on. The Czech Republic have a handful. I think Hungary has was it 12 or something, 14 planes. Czech Republic the same, and then you have Brazil. I don't know how many they have. Not very friendly to Ukraine. You have Thailand, not really involved in the coalition. So yeah, it would have to come from Sweden, maybe from the Czech Republic. But there's not many planes. I would love to see it. Actually, you know that. I would love to see it, but I think I'm not holding my breath that it would happen anytime soon. Even I would love to see it. And of course, it would be great for Saab to have a major export market and real action to prove itself as well. So yeah, it would be great. But anyway, there we go.
Then John, I have a question for you. Is it true that svenska flickor knödlar bröd?
Never tried. I've been living abroad too much.
I have a similar question. What does Sina Sabel Sab mean? I remember that phrase from a childhood, and it should be something
Oh,
like apple
come
juice.
on. Zina
Say again.
Zina Zabelzap.
It sounds German to me, but
he's talking about orange juice. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. In any event, let's move away from all this stuff. Hop, I had a question for you in this regard. Have you yesterday and today called upon your elected officials? Hippity hop?
Yes, sir. Yesterday, yes. Today, no. I apologize. I've been in the air all day and literally just got.
Oh, you have actual work.
Actual work, and I did do it yesterday though. You know, but no, I haven't done it today. But I used the link. I think. Well, at one point it was number 1 in the nest, but now it's probably 4 or 5 back. I saw it a little while ago, and I used that for the first time, and pretty useful. So there's that.
All righty. We're going to get now Furious George, who's going to be furious about the fact that I relegated him back to the ground. But there you go. That's completely fine because I'm quite sure that he hasn't been starting a plane off, well, any tarmac. George, what do you have to say for yourself? Have you been flying with one of your tanks?
No. I gave up on that idea when I saw this old film footage of this tank that back in the 1920s that they try to make fly, and I was like, nah, I think I'll skip that.
But did you see the one video of the Leopard which shot out of what can only be seen as a ramp, where the crew tried to find out how far it actually would go up in the air and, so to say, not fly, but jump?
Yeah, I saw that. I'm sure the mechanics looking at that were like gritting their teeth.
Somebody has to deal with the tracks after.
Yes, yeah. There was a lot of colorful words being uttered when they saw the clip of that video. I'm sure. The swear jar would have been able to finance probably a new tank at that point.
There you go. All right, then, John, what do you want to say to our Furious George?
No, I just want to tell George that actually that was not the clip from the 1920s. You know, when the T10 went over, was unloaded from the truck. That was recent. If that's the one you were talking about, very recent.
No, I'm looking at one. It was like I don't know what it was. It was.
I know it, George.
Yeah. You're talking about the T10. Well, yeah, that T10 is. Yeah, it's it's only since it was only built probably between 1948 and 1953, so it's not that old. Come on, it's not as old as David. Let's put it that way. But Axel, are you did the news this morning pique your interest?
You are not talking again about Spiegel.
Who?
Der Spiegel, the communist, Marxist, treacherous, anti-capitalist, anti-West, self-absorbed, narcissistic cesspool of overpaid journalists who are allowed to manipulate public opinion in Germany.
No. I'm not talking about anything of that. I'm not talking about Germany at all. The country begins with a G, but it's not Germany.
What is it with Georgia on my mind?
Not Georgia either.
Oh, come on, play this game please, but get on with it. Because if it's in any shape or form, the country you and I know not to start with a G anyway, there you go.
Yeah, It shouldn't be starting with a G, but we can always thank those bloody Roman bastards. Anyway, yeah, it looks like you know, something is moving. It was glacial speed, but it's picking up some steam now because Greece did announce.
Are they mounting horses?
Nah.
Are they mounting 8-span horses, like a proper solid 8 horses in front of any of those tanks to move them out?
No. What they are going to be moving out is something that Ukraine critically does need moving forward, and that's air defense systems. So it looks like they are going to. They terminated the service contract or whatever they had with Russia at the time. They're going to decommission these bloody things, and in other words, decommission is not take them apart. It means take them out of being as active inventory for the Hellenic armed forces and the Hellenic Air Force, and probably send them to Ukraine because they're actually in desperate need of these systems. We're talking, you know, quite a number of things that the Ukrainians can use, at least around some of those ports that have been started to get hit by cruise missiles and Shahed drones, and actually at the front. So it looks like it's they used to have 39. I think one got something that happened to one of the OSA launchers. That's the SA-8 system. So they have 38 of those, and they have 21 Tor batteries, which are the SA-15. So that's 84 launchers with a missile. So that'll be a lot.
Nice and supplemental for layered distributed air defense.
Oh yes,
and as we can see, the books are quite effective, are they not?
Well, the SA, they're a self-contained system, and the missiles they fire have a 10-kilometer range, which is pretty good when it comes to hitting those Ka-52 you know, weeble wobble helicopters that the Russians like to deploy at night. So that's why those are going to be beneficial, because move to the front. Did I break this? Is someone talking? I'm not hearing them.
No. You're not as good as our friend Daryl. Daryl comes up, says a few words, and crashes in space. That's a completely different ball game. But stay with us, and in the meantime, you should try to relearn the Greek national anthem for the moment when we both have to sing it in honor of them transferring the books. Because Hop, you will probably confirm this. If they had 80 plus of those launchers, that would make for a very nice distributed defense system, which you can use to create a bubble all along that wonderfully stretched front line, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, and also it's not just the boots. Don't they have a second system of fewer numbers are being transferred that also the tours? So, you know, you got the tours are shorter, the boots are a little longer range. I mean, you got descent in depth, not huge depth, but in depth all the way up and down the front. And heck, you might be able to have a couple extra to put in Odessa and, you know, maybe a little farther out in Kyiv and bolster some of your airfield defenses, especially since you're going to be getting all these valuable airplanes. I mean, it is just manna from heaven. Thank you, Greece and George.
Well, if Axel doesn't know this, but I do know the Greek national anthem by heart. So not all 242 stanzas, but at least I know the first one.
Ah, see, but this was my point, because that's a pretty damn long thing.
Yeah, it's the national anthem is actually kind of like an oral history of the whole country up until the 1800s. It's pretty insane.
It's a tale. That's what I was trying to get at. That's why I said we have to learn it. But thank you very much for highlighting exactly that. So stay with us. Don't go away because we may need you still. Who knows? Alex. Kaftelli.
Alex, do you hear us?
He's far away from the phone.
No,
He's somewhere in the.
I was listening to something. Apparently, hackers.
You listen to other things whilst we are here with you on the space.
I do. But yeah, I couldn't confirm. I'll check before announcing, but looks like Skabeva's phone was hacked and was anyway. My question was, so do we have?
We can confirm her phone was hacked some time ago, but I have not yet heard anything. The rumors abound, but we haven't gotten anything confirmed. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there was very small portion, but apparently there were some photos which they said would be published, and a small talk where she was trying to say, "Well, let's talk," and he said, "No, you're not gonna stop us," and basically cut off the line. But I like. Yeah, until it's done, it's there is probably nothing to talk about. Do we have any news about Greece? Is this moving up faster, like what we spoke early on during the day? That's a question to Fury George. I
believe. Yeah, someone's going to probably challenge me on this, but I believe what's going to happen is that transfer is going to happen, and so remember, what was Greece's sticking point on transferring these things? They needed something to backfill, right? Because people are like, there's a lot of, so for the listeners, because there's a lot of people tweeting about this that have no idea what the hell they're talking about. The Greek army is not Belarus, okay? And it's not Russia. These are active systems that have been well maintained because they've been in active defense of Greek airspace. They've been spread all along the Aegean islands, especially the ones facing Turkey. So they're not like something that's going to be pulled and dusted off, or something broken, and it's not going to be sent for parts kits. These are active bloody systems, and they have hundreds of missiles for them. I mean, that's why Greece bought them, because at the time they were cheap, considering other systems coming out of East Germany, Poland, and Russia, and they needed something to defend the major islands that they have in the Aegean. So they're active things. So what has Greece asked for? They're like, we can't take active air defense offline and leave a gap. People are going to argue, why do you need it, blah, blah, blah. It's, hey, Greece is allowed to feel threatened if they feel threatened by someone, including one of their neighbors. So the fact that they're now going to decommission these things tells us, obviously, someone is going to backfill this thing. There is no way Greece is decommissioning these things and having a huge gap in their air defense. That would not fly politically in Greece. It would be, a big problem. So when is that transfer? Has that backfill already happened? Blah, blah, blah. This is what we don't know. I think official announcements will probably be made during Rammstein. But when I believe that once the official announcements are made, the transfers will have already been made. In other words, it will happen, and then we'll have the announcement after it happens. I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? You don't want to tell your enemy that you're rolling in one system for another, blah, 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 whoever that enemy is, whether it's who Greece is threatened by, or obviously Ukraine doesn't want the Russians to find out that these systems are in Ukraine. The best way for them to find out is for their idiotic pilots, to be I'm going to fire these, these rockets from my Su-25 3 kilometers from the front, and I'm good to go. And once they eat a couple of missiles, then and we watch the video of them crashing and burning, then you'll know they're there. But I think that's how it's going to be done. Greece doesn't like to announce some of the stuff it's sent. I know it's going to be transferring. I know they're older, but Greece has now pulled out all their towed artillery, except for about 4 dozen pack howitzers, 105 millimeter pack howitzers. They're Italian made, that they use for their mountain units. So all their towed artillery has been decommissioned this year, and they are available. And those are older 105 and older 155 millimeter howitzers, but obviously Ukraine can use them. So I'm sure those will be transferred into Ukraine sooner than later.
But no dates. We do not know dates, right?
No.
When is Rammstein?
Well, Rammstein's, I think, what is it, Axel? Is it September 18th or somewhere in the middle of the month?
Third week of September, I have here on my cheat sheet.
Yes, something like that. I think 17th or 18th, if I remember correctly, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very well.
And I think
there were also some BMPs, right? But they are old, I know, and they're awful. But still, there were significant number, I think, in the beginning. They were also waiting for backfill, I think.
Yeah, we were waiting for. Well, martyrs have been coming in. That transfer happened. Greece sent BMPs to Ukraine, and Germany is backfilling them with martyrs. But Greece is also looking at updating their to a more modern APC, and I believe they've signed some kind of an initial contract with a German company on that.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, a nice way to see what has provided what to Ukraine is by watching the yesterday published thank you videos from Ukraine, which has been published because of Independence Day, and there are several threads where you can watch them all together, and this way you can kind of see at least what was the biggest highlight from the Ukraine's perspective. And with that, we might want to go with the hands, because Paul I think was waiting quite long, and then we would have Daryl. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Vasilius, and good evening, Axel and George, Mr. M, Shaggy, Daryl, then John, Axel, Hop Seamockers, Dr. Nick, Anda, Alan, many long-time supporters here in the space. Yeah, if you allow, I want to share my top 3 of positive things I've noticed during this week, if that's all right.
Yeah,
as long as it doesn't start with Prigozhin, and we don't have to discuss Prigozhin, and we can avoid discussing as to why it matters nothing. And like, if that's clear, all good.
Excellent. On the contrary, and so I'm gonna start from this, because people are talking on how to say, they are missing the point. The point is not Prigozhin. The point is to realize that there's no Wagner anymore, because we have to admit that Wagner wasn't the worst unit in Russian army, and it's important to notice that now it's gone. It's I would say it's completely gone, deleted, and it will take some time them to get any, other PMC unit in place and have some same kind of setting. So that's, in my opinion, that's a positive thing that the Wagner is no more. That was first. Then the second one, apparently, there's our country is leaking information, and we are. I think Oryx reported that we are shipping self-propelled howitzers to Ukraine, and then heavy ammunition. So apparently, was it 32 of the old Soviet ones, self-propelled 122s,
Yes.
and then also lots of heavy ammunition. And the package was about, was it 91 million euros? So if you just quickly calculate, I think you can send a lot of heavy ammunition with that money, and more is coming. I just want to highlight that a friend of the space and former intelligence general Pekka Toveri was in Kiev. I think it was 2 days ago when they were supposed to have a press conference at 6 o'clock Kiev time, and there was a air alert, and our prime minister was also there. So I think although having an air alert isn't that nice, I think they both got the how to say, gist of what's going on in Ukraine, and I'm also quite confident that they will make sure that our defense minister, Mr. Antti Häkkänen, who's a stand-up guy, will have all the necessary support and backing to keep sending lethal stuff to Ukraine. So that's a good thing. And then number 3, in my opinion, good things happening south and southeast of Robotny, and I've been doing some calculations and measuring the terrain directly south from Robotny, and that corridor, in my opinion, looks very good, and I'm quite confident that Ukraine will use the bland terrain, because it doesn't really give much support on defending the terrain. So I'm really looking forward on Ukraine utilizing the area and just going straight to south, not going to Tokmak, going straight to south and cutting the 3 roads there, just splitting the land corridor. Thank you. That was my third point.
That's the corridor.
Exactly. Thank you, Axel, and thank you everyone for supporting space, supporting the cause. Let's keep our morals high and keep the support flowing and fighting the misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is better than taking Tokmak? Encircling Tokmak.
Routing Tokmak.
Well, that's the logical consequence. As soon as it's cut off and encircled and P-37 is taken off, there's no supplies coming from the southeast. And that's the whole point. This is where you need to go. But then again, we're only regurgitating what has already been said and what the Ukrainians have said many times before. And with that, we have to go to Daryl. And everybody, just be warned, it is 11:20 Kiev time on Friday, the 25th. Daryl speaks, and hopefully we don't crash.
Yeah, hopefully we don't crash. Hey folks, how y'all doing? I was listening to what George was saying, and it just seems rather, it's almost like Erdogan is trying to get on people's good graces for whatever reason. Either he's seen the writing on the wall, or he was offered something in that meeting you know, about NATO and admittance of the northern neighbors into the fold. And I am just wondering, does anybody think that there was some deal made in that, and that is the reason why he's all of a sudden turned to adding, giving away many things that it seems like he would not have. I mean, those S-200s, they're going to come in real handy for Ukraine at this point. And it just seems like, why now? What has he been given, and by whom? And also too, we're looking at this thing, and it seems like there's a lot of things that we don't know in this whole arrangement, and it's all been positive for Ukraine, of course. And so, what is Turkey getting in this outside of something to replace that? That may be the bigger picture on why Turkey is giving away something. They're getting something that they really wanted, and not only just some upgraded martyrs and things of that nature. Was I speaking into a muted mic?
No, you've been.
Ah, you said too early.
Sorry.
You should have given him 5 more seconds. No, serious. Daryl, absolutely. The question really is: has the pressure and the threat by Erdogan subsided, whilst at the same time Mitsotakis has seemingly come around in supporting Ukraine by means of giving up certain assets for which he needs a backfill, and seemingly somebody somehow in summertime finally gave whoever a kick. I presume actually it was Maloney giving the French kick, and then promising, if not delivering, some SAM-Ts, because without the SAM-Ts, our friends in Greece would not take that course of action, unless, of course, for some odd reason, somebody has found a Patriot battery somewhere standing around, and which they'd be willing to donate to Greece. That, of course, would change the course of history completely. But there you go.
And this has been a pretty good damn week. It happened on my birthday, so I'm still elated about that. As far as Wagner being taken out, I am still.
We didn't sing for you.
A little. I know, and what you were mentioning earlier about the groups in Africa that have been under fire, been taken out. These Wagner groups. That was something I heard, which that is a plus on its own if these groups are being somehow managed, but managing to find their way to be disposed of without it becoming a world issue of us needing a special unit to take them out, unless that's what's already happening. We don't know. But anyway, that part of it I am very happy about, because it could lead to different, these countries not going through the same problems that they've been through. At least maybe they're coming into a conclusion. Because there's a lot of things that need to go on in Africa as far as trade, because a lot of the world needs things out of Africa, and it could be a positive for them and a positive for the rest of the world if there's not a battle waging for every resource that's available and from these countries.
And speaking about the South, we should also not forget Syria, which is also there have been also some news coming from, where they are obviously using the momentum to make aware that they are not happy with the situation in there, being ruled by Russians. And I hope that this time we won't hesitate and help them as well. Hesitate, not hesitate, sorry. And yes, we have few new speakers, but none of them I can at least see a hand. Maybe that it's a Twitter or X flux. But if Axel, how about you? Do you see any hands of those
No,
new
there's
No,
no hands up.
speakers?
There's no hands
Okay.
up, Massilius. This is the typical thing which happens from time to time when people have talked themselves out. In any event, alrighty. Let's go back to the topic which we had beforehand, and that is the self-propelled howitzers which have been donated. You have to understand what it means in terms of the sheer numbers. 32, even the older self-propelled howitzers, 32 of the Russian howitzers are very, very decent for what is in this case creating kill zones in a slightly less precise bombing effort. This is very good for defensive counter-battery fire. They're not as fast, and they don't have the same good sensors, but if there are counter-battery sensors which could connect and network those 122s all across the front line, these will come in handy for Ukraine, because Ukraine needs to dominate the artillery battle. That is its task in this case. For certain attack vectors, they will have 155 and more precise and good gunnery, but having more kit is good. And having Finnish ammunition, let's call it this way. Paulie, what's the equivalent of the DPICM song in Finland?
Even for me, that's new one. Yeah, tell me. I don't
But
know.
Finland always had a lot of good ammunition and a lot of very crafty work, having gone into fuses and the likes and improving systems. So, did you sign up to this strange, agreement, this convention on DPICM?
God, no. That's the hell freezes before we are in that agreement. And I have to say that we do not only have good ammunition. Our ammunition is the best with the rifles and with the artillery. It's the best and most precise. Thank you.
That's interesting that you would say that, because I've always thought that to be true. Then, John, don't tell me that Swedish ammunition is great.
No, but I can tell you why the Finns have great ammunition, because they have dangerous neighbors to the west. And also, I want to put some blame now on the Finns. Finally, I have a Finn here I can spew a little bit on. If you only had bought the Gripen, Gripen JAS 39, you would have been in a different situation now. That you went with those F-18 that needs permission from way over there. Why didn't you go with Gripen? And also, you would have had a lot of cluster, whatever missiles, whatever they attach to those Gripens. It's there in the warehouse, but you need a plane as well. You should have gone for the Gripen, probably. Why? What happened?
Well, we didn't won the last Eurovision, so I think the score is pretty even. Your Loreen, or what was the singer's name, took it from us. So.
Wasn't it Lordy?
Lordy. Yeah, but Gripen that's a really nice fighter plane, and I think this will be a turning point for all Europe to take notes and notice that there's a lot of good things coming from this small country called Sweden.
I love these small countries in the north. because they all form a natural barrier towards Russia. Alrighty, Massilius, have we heard anything during this week from Mr. Kretschmer again, or has he now been shamed into oblivion?
Let me think. Was it this week or was it last week where he was released a tweet in which he actually, because there was a very interesting thread between him and I think it was Masala. Masala is a Italian rooted, but a German, of course, expert and a very cool guy, very good expertise, very good, and also quite, how do you put it? Eloquent. He can. He is a real good talker.
Yeah, for
he
German
makes-
German purposes, he can count as an expert. Yeah.
Yes, and he they both had an argument, and it all started with let me remember. Obviously, Kretschmer trying to get back to business as usual with Russia, and appealing again and trying to get the gas contracts back. And at some point, he even said that before the war, Germany had very stable and good relations with a very wise foreign politic. At this moment, I was out. But I don't think it was this week. I think it was last week. So if there was something this week, please.
No, I was wondering because,
share.
of course, he last week he came under pressure. The man is the meek and highly on the defensive state prime minister in one of the former Soviet occupied zones, derived states, and he doesn't really have a cultural grip on anything, and he's very much dependent on an electorate which is pro-Russian, and he needs to fight off both a battle from the far hard left and the Social Democrats on the one hand, a relatively weak Green Party, but predominantly a resurgent, hard-charging AfD, which is the populist far right outside of the political spectrum, but still electable currently still in Germany, unfortunately. And Mr. Kretschmer, however, has always been, say, deeply in the pocket of Moscow, and he should have been expelled already from the Christian Democrat Union, but they took him in and they let him around. But then again, he is self-liquidating. That's very good, actually, in this regard. He manages to find a way to each and every day step into a big puddle of cow dung right outside his office. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And in that regard, unfortunately, he's still within the say extended board of the party, but I doubt that he will stay there for long because he's neither eloquent, intelligent, nor a great leader. And just because of one state, I don't think that the conservatives in Germany should sacrifice their soul. But that's a different thing. In any event, I was asking because I heard that he has been on the radio pounding the doors of people, and he was not the caller who Deutschlandfunk, previously a respectable German good old radio station, allowed to come up and make other, say, insinuations. Because there was this week in Germany, you wouldn't believe, in Germany, of all places, there was someone who called into one of the very few all across Germany audible radio stations, because others are mostly state or regional. And this is a public radio station, so it's run and funded by the state, okay? And that's why it's called Deutschlandfunk. So to say, it's effectively the radio station equivalent to what the Deutsche Welle tries to be for a worldwide audience. And Deutschlandfunk had a discussion where somebody called into digital radio and said that that person indicated and advocated that President Zelensky should literally be quartered, tarred, and eviscerated. So somebody
yes,
was
that
actually this in itself is a crime, by the way, under German law. What he tried to insinuate by that means, and it is a felony, and it should never have been allowed that this person would have been on a radio space. And there were people who indicated, goodness me, is that the assistant to Mr. Kretschmer?
I don't know if he was an assistant to Mr. Kretschmer, but I know how the Deutsche Welle actually reacted, and it was a disaster. They have obviously the Deutschlandfunk. They have obviously discussed whether or not they should print this comment, and they decided to print it first, and then after being called out, of course, by all the fellas and alike, they just removed this one comment without any notice or without any explanation and any excuse.
Yeah,
So
it is currently consistent with a long line of faults of German public institutions. As always, you say that the fish stings from the head. Yes, that may have been the case, but we have now permeated and percolated the entitlement complacency across all parties in the sclerotic, publicly owned media stations in Germany. Both television as well as radio have already deteriorated to a level which is unseen, unheard of, and unenvisaged. In the 1980s and 90s, we were all making fun of the rather ludicrous and amateurish and garish political presentations of private radio in Germany and private television. They were just amateurish. This continued even through the 2000s, and they haven't really improved much. But Jesus, bloody Christ, let me swear and cuss again. The deterioration of the German media market is just consistent with having mediocre tertiary people such as Olaf Scholz being elevated into public office. It is astonishing. I mean, this would never have happened in the 1980s in Germany. Never. Neither would have anyone been allowed to come on radio in such a format. And I can definitely assure you that this is not customary. This is not what it should be. I can only hope that in the next 2 or 3 months, Germany wakes up, gives its head a wobble, and returns to civilized ways.
Apropos Kretschmer and phone, I think for the non-German audience, we should also highlight, and I will put it into a nice, very illustrative picture of Kretschmer wanting to actually talk to his master once, where he visited, also went to Moscow, but Putin had no time for such a small fish. So the only conversation they both had was on the phone, actually, from a hotel in Moscow, and the picture is brilliant because he's sitting on a edge of a big couch with a phone in his hand, and I think there was also a wire on the phone. So he was looking like such a tiny little girl trying to get something on a phone, and that's a best picture describing his manhood. Let's say it like that.
Let's put it this way: he gives innocent young girls a bad name by looking sheepish, and that's unfair. Let me put it this way: if I were to compare my daughter to him, I have to say I'll take her guts and her courage over this person. This guy has a rubber handshake, and he is absolutely terrifying. Having said all this, why do we talk about this? There is significant movement in the German political establishment. The lines are breaking up. It seems that there is a say rejuvenation in certain areas, which may even lead to the Free Democrats to understand that they can't be in this coalition any further, which is very interesting. The economic indications in Germany are terrifying. The current coalition has already increased by shutting down the nuclear power plants and increasing their reliance on coal, following their completely estranged Marxist ideology. They have increased regulation, raised energy prices, befuddled the investment horizons of companies, leading to pretty vast and wide-fronted deindustrialization and reallocation of equity capital, and they still don't understand it. At the same time, they are overrunning their budgets, they are not doing their job and just conducting business. It is astonishing. If we were disenchanted by the previous grand coalition between the Conservatives and the Social Democrats, this is much, much worse. Much worse. It is so bad that even the polling data for them is already showing that they're below 32% altogether in the worst of all polls. So as such, there is a change coming, and that's good. It is for the benefit of Ukraine, because no party could be as bad as the Social Democratic Party when it comes to standing up for Ukraine.
Indeed. And the picture is in the nest for anyone who might want to see what we have described beforehand.
Yeah, that is epic. That is absolutely epic. But then again, some of our countrymen, Vasilius, unfortunately voted for this man. It is disappointing, despicable, and silly, but there you go. We can't change it. And as much as I can shout out to our friends in Denmark and Sweden and everywhere else, at least our good neighbors to the northwest, to the northeast, and to the west have done the better thing. If I look at the Dutch, no matter how their coalitions are building, and yes, it's difficult, I get that, they got the job done. And if I look at the Danish, who definitely always are slow, and it's a conundrum, as our friend Jakob Karsbo, who was with us earlier this week. And by the way, if you want to go to Spotify, you will find Jakob Karsbo's segment there already on it. As Jakob said, Danish politics can be quite a bloodbath, and it's intransigent and difficult. But the Danes have decided to change their posture, and that's great. That's one absolutely perfect. Even the heavily communitarian, let's put it this way, Norwegians, but then again, they always stood up to Mordor. Just not when it comes to their harbors, just not when it comes to the infiltration by spies, just not when Svalbard. Okay, they didn't really stand up to them, but at least they're in NATO. But even the Norwegians have said it's enough now. And if the Swedes now finally come out of the discussion chamber, then they could all be Finns or Estonians. Then, John, be like Finland?
Actually, where is that chamber? Or where is the door? Where's the exit?
You know, the funny thing is in northern Germany, when you have a meadow which is drained and it's nicely fenced, and specifically, typically it's somewhat rectangular in some shape or form. That's how we do it. And then there's a little hock and a little area where you can say get the cattle in, but the rest, that thing is called fenne, and it's rectangular because it makes more sense to build the fence. And it has an exit. And when you tell somebody that he is in einer runden Fenne, in a round, so to say, circular Fenne, then he is in something from which he can't get out of, because there's no corner, no exit. And it always seems to us, as our dearly beloved neighbors that we know the Swedes are beloved, that you're somewhat stuck in that circular kind of chamber, you know?
Yeah, you know, when you build around fencing, you need many posts, right? The rectangular, you only need 4. Yeah, makes sense. We're trying to be like the Germans, but you know, 2 steps behind.
Please be better. Be better than that. Follow the Finnish example, please.
Maybe a Malmström would also could describe the situation quite good.
Maelstrom, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. Well, that's German politics for you. Gosh, this is depressing. It's Friday evening. We should be happy. It's midnight here. Bloody hell. Please, people, help me out of this.
Well, I'm having nice XO here, and the fireplace is running, so I'm doing swell.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. See, I was moderating, hosting here. Paulie's up. I thought I'm not going to go down and light up the sauna. I'll do this in the morning, and then I'm going to light up the fireplace as well. But it's not that cold yet. I mean, it's not like in Finland. You have 14 degrees already, right?
Yeah, it's summer heat is still on. Went for a swim in the sea. It was like maybe not 18 degrees or 19. So it's
insane.
blazing hot.
It's boiling.
Yeah, I don't know how the what are
People
they?
in Florida or in the Caribbean do that? Yeah, I don't know either.
no, I mean the fishes, how they survive. It's so hot. Yeah.
But you know what? The fish needs to swim. That's why you need an aquavit. All right, I can see that Mokas is coming up because it's Friday night, it's city time, and we haven't heard anything of the booms in recent hours because there's a lot of shit going on, but we can't really confirm the breakthrough yet, can we?
I can tell you something. And if Denjon wants to go first, because it's a little bit wordy.
Yeah, I have a really quick question, and it's really important. So, Axel, your sauna, by the way, sauna. I think Pauli can confirm. Is that sauna? Is it nuclear powered? Or?
Well, then in the main house we have one which is electric for all sorts of purposes, and that's completely fine. It's easy, and you can run it all the time. But in the log cabin, of course, there's wood. What else do you? Are you nuts?
I'm disappointed, but anyway, yeah, there we go.
What do you mean you're disappointed?
Mokas.
It
should be nuclear. Come on.
There's a wood sauna. What do you want? Paulie, please tell the Swedes that it's a wood sauna.
The Swedes,
what does he want there in Sweden?
The Swedes want to have the infrared sauna that's constantly 40 degrees, where you can read the IKEA magazine and have fikan. So that's what the Swedes want. Stable 40 degrees.
Then John, Paulie and I go into a sauna which is at 104 degrees proper wood, as it should be. Nothing else compares.
I don't have any answer for that, but yeah, enjoy.
All right, Mokas, bim bam boom.
Well, we shall see. So I have a new person that I've been looking at their updates for quite some time, and they've been pretty good actually. So I thought I would start bringing them to the space. Now, this is somebody who identifies by the name The Analyst, and I've found them to be quite a good source of information. So here we go. Ukrainian forces have started an operation north of Bakhmut, pushing down the road to Soledar. At present, it's difficult to see if this is a serious effort or a distraction tactic, but I know it's happening. The big news is that Russians are really struggling to hold off Ukraine's advances south of Rostream. And there is a lot of talk that we may have already reached the next village of Novoprokopivka and have entered the top of this larger village. Russian sources say that we have control, but there is no confirmation of that. Now, I think when they said that they have control, I think they mean fire control. I'm pretty sure that that's what was being confirmed there. So anyway, if we have entered even the edge of this location, it's a big deal. I can't emphasize this enough. Other intel suggests that Ukraine's advances westward to Kopeny and eastward to Verbove have also been met with success. Both sides are reporting Russian forces surrendering in increasing numbers, an issue even Russian bloggers are almost sympathetic over, based on the poor treatment by commanders and lack of supplies. Further up the front line, going east, there seems to have been some success at the Novoprokhovka. It sounds similar, but it's not the same place, I promise you. And there could well be an entire salient moving south between there and Kopane. The Russians are utterly crapping themselves on Telegram, and I think doom is now riding their forces. Let's hope so. I have said many times that there's a real feeling that the Russians were close to breaking point and just needed a big shove to get over the line. So much work has gone in recently to weaken their C2, EW, artillery, ammo and logistics. And look, at this point it's starting to pay off. There's a lot of suggestion that the next defence line is in fact nowhere near as strong or well defended as we imagined. But let's not get carried away just yet. Now, if you think we might be jumping ahead, how about this intel? The FSB and administrative management are said to already be evacuating Tokmak. This has been verified from their own sources in the tower and by pro-Ukrainian sources, who have said the FSB are already on their way out of the door. How do you think this makes their local defenders feel when they know their Russian authority is leaving? This mentality will spread like COVID at a rock concert. On top of that, the command centres in Tokmak were hit with missiles this morning. Russians say between 50 to 100 units of mechanised forces are coming at them directly, and they believe as many as 5 battalions on the move with supporting infantry. Whether that is the case or not, the Russians believe it is, and that the Ukrainians are coming and coming hard. Add to that, the Russians were forced into action on the left bank of the Dnieper and in the islands, and the 205th Infantry are trapped, with Russian command refusing to allow them to be rescued. By all accounts, they will not survive. So there you go. That is a general update of what we're hearing from the battlefield, and none of that sounds like bad news, does it?
No, it's completely fine, and this is exactly what we were discussing when Paulie came up earlier to talk about the approach down south and pressing down south. Novoprokopivka is roughly what? That is, let me check. 5 kilometers? Yeah, 5 kilometers from Kopane, 7 from, no, it's not true. Let me correct myself here quickly. Hold on. It's 7 kilometers from the outskirts of Novoprokopivka. And Verbove is nothing else than 11 kilometers away. So if they can manage to widen the front and open up that space, Verbove is on a ridge. That is where Paulie said that they should push through the south. And that's a place named Ocheteruvate. If you look and follow this, there is a way to pass. Sorry, what?
I said easy for you to say.
Yeah, I apologize.
Your word, pardon?
It's like, what should I say? Yeah, I can pronounce Czech if need be. But having said this, Ocheteruvate and then going down the route, as Paulie said, to what could be Skeluvate and Trudove, then you are very much closing in on the P-37 down south. And there you have a nice place, yet another Uruzhaine, by the way, if I may say and highlight. It's a very interesting situation which they face with the topography. If you look at the topographical map on Google Earth, you can see this much better. There's a unique opportunity for the Ukrainians to outflank Tokmak. The Russians know it, the Ukrainians know it, and as Dr. Karlberg had said on CEPA's report, they just need to make another, whatever, anywhere between 7 and 15 kilometers, and then find a way to position HIMARS with sufficient good range. They can hit absolutely everything which the Russians need in order to supply the western part of the occupied territories in southwest Ukraine. And as a consequence, will make their life and their defense untenable. You encircle Tokmak, and at some point in time, Tokmak is drained. You push through further, take the P-37 and go further. And at the same time, they have the Vector and Volodar. And we've said it here many times, and I think Chuck, Alan, you have to tell me, because I fell asleep. I didn't listen to Chuck's longer segment. In the last 2 segments, he did talk about Volodar, right?
Yes, he did talk about Volodar, but primarily as a failure of Russian combined arms and an indication that they're really not able to design such operations.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should be prepared that Volodar will be a very important, the area south of Volodar will be very important for us very soon.
Chuck was really interested in driving east of Verbove in the Orkiv map that's up in the nest now. Not only south, as Polly says, but to Chuck's mind, east. And that would make the Russian position in Polohi pretty untenable in his opinion.
Yeah, I agree that one vector in the east straight away, and then southeast another vector. That would be really, really nice. Agree with Chuck. Thank you, Alan.
Well, I can't wait to see what develops over the next few days, or let's say over the next week. But certainly, all the news today has been quite favorable.
Well, we'll have to wait a little bit, but then you have the 2 roads, both leading to what is Polohi, and the issue is as the elevation increases there, whether Ukraine is willing to challenge that, or whether they just stop outside of Polohi and just race down south and to literally bypass Polohi, bypass Vokrosenka, and just at a later stage take it from the south, bypass and encircle. Polohi is massively fortified.
And there are those heights to the north of Polohi. Chuck did mention that Polohi is highly fortified by the Russians.
Well, there you go. Yeah, then again, sometimes the facts are just the facts, so there you go. Anyway, so that'll be very interesting. And in the meantime, I have to say it's midnight here in Tallinn. As a consequence, we'll have one more question. A hand up from Jeff. Is it Shevchenko? Shevchenko lives. Oh, wonderful! What a nice name.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to underscore, besides all the other good news, and the bad news relates to morale for Russian troops. I think just coming off Independence Day, there's so much high spirit and so much. There was so little news in Ukrainian social media. In a lot of ways, it was just a whole lot of pride for their country, and I'm just hoping that the unity through that is just wind in the sails and reminds all the soldiers of how critical their work is and how thankful everybody is and what they're fighting for. And so my hope is that there'll be an additional momentum push coming off Independence Day yesterday for them as well.
Absolutely key point, and we've heard it from many parties and many voices from Ukraine also here on the space. And there is a sense of In this case, not foreboding, but there's a sense of anticipation that the hard grind will continue, but that there is light at the end of the tunnel and it's not the approaching train. All right, and before we swiftly swap, Alan, let's go to Randy, because Randy, Alan, you and I need to have on our space on Monday. At what point in time, Alan, will we be here with Stephen Moore?
I believe it is 2 p.m. Eastern time, Axel.
Exactly, 2 p.m. Eastern. Randy, don't tell me that you're not around 2 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, absolutely. I had one more point on some of the possibilities of the Robotnik breakthrough. I got it from a YouTube guy who's a ex-soldier, and I was looking at it, trying to evaluate it. The east-west lines go through Verbobi, and there's a big push going on there right now. If the Ukrainians took that, they would have a lateral way into trenches going west, east and west to go right down that trench line, which might be interesting.
Yes, absolutely. And they can outmaneuver and outflank Polohui from the south.
And then
exactly.
and then if they're going in that trench line, if they get in one of those continuous, it's virtually continuous, they can just keep going down the trench line, and the Russians have almost, I mean, I don't know what, I mean, the only alternative would, I guess, to be just bringing some kind of, if they had a reserve force to try to block. But if you're going down a perpendicular to the normal approach, not frontal, but sideways down the trench line, it's really, I mean, they lose all the benefit of the trenches. So there are just so many possibilities by this penetration, which and there'll undoubtedly be some surprises out of it. There's so much they can do. So I think it's a big deal. And the reports, I saw the picture where somebody claimed there was 100 armored vehicles in the picture, and I don't know, what units are going on down there, and nobody will know. Maybe there's more than we think, maybe less. Maybe they're going west, maybe they're going south, maybe they're going in all three, south, east, and west. But it looks like it's causing quite a panic with the Russians, because I don't think they have a reserve force that they can really pitch in. They had a lot of their weakest units at Robotnik at one spot, and they had some Spetsnaz and a couple of other good units, but they've been very, very depleted. They've been units that have been combated for a long time, and it just looks like this could be it. But we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise. Maybe it'll pop up somewhere else. But it's quite exciting. I'm getting a kind of a Gulf War buzz, but maybe I better put the brakes on that.
All righty. Okay, so, but in any event, Randy, put in your calendar, tie a little knot into your handkerchief. Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Stephen Moore, Alan Brewer, myself. And if you're ready, you too.
Absolutely.
It will be great to have you there, Randy. I can send you some information about Stephen Moore, but you probably know who he is.
Sure.
All righty. And with that, we still have 3 hands. We'll clear the deck, Alan, and then if we find Prince, we'll elevate Prince as well. I've sent you an invite. In the meantime, let's see how this works. All righty. Jay Ranfield.
Good afternoon, good evening for all the folks in Europe. Axel, I've got, because you guys always ask me about Dallas, I have a little bit of Dallas news. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily good news, but the creator of the show passed away this week, and they were talking about how it was kind of in a recession era when it came up, and why it might have been of interest and all that. But they talked at length about the length that they went to keep it a secret of who shot JR.
They even filmed multiple scenarios so that not even the actors knew which one was going to be chosen. And at a reception at Buckingham Palace, the Queen, who was a fan of the show, leaned into this. I don't even know his name, but the fellow who passed away leaned into him and said, "So who was it?" And he said, "Not even you, ma'am." So
that
little
is
bit of
operational security at its best.
yes, it is, and so I don't have anything in particular question wise, but just it seems I'm excited as well about the possibilities. I did have a question. I had seen several different folks talk about a high ground position. It was a place on the road from Tokmak to Palohi. Starts with an O, and I was just curious. I didn't have access. Okay. And is it topographically? Is it like?
It is
it
important,
like?
and it's
Okay.
it's the place which we were talking about, which whilst there's only a slight elevation, there is one, and it's interesting in oh so many ways, because if you can cross over both to the west and to the east of it, you can take that place whilst it will be fortified and will be mined, but you can take the area. That's the TO401. I'm quite sure that, I mean, probably Alan can tell me this, that I would hope at least that Chuck would have talked about this. But if you can pass through there, then you're on the right road.
Great. Hope folks have a wonderful weekend. If I don't hear you or talk to you over the weekend, and Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava. And by the way, the guy who created Dallas was David Jacobs.
Yes, that's right. I meant to mention that specifically to you. So, all right. Thanks.
All righty, Alan. We'll go to Shevchenko, and then I will swibbity swap out with Prince.
Yeah, just a point of information by way of encouragement, because the space does decently well at pronouncing Ukrainian things. Let's, instead of Verbovi, let's try something more like Verbova as that town's name. As we move into new towns, Lord willing, we'll have lots more to learn for as the armed forces of Ukraine make their way through liberating towns as we go. But Verbova.
I'm completely with you. Of course, it's Verbova. But the key thing is that for many of our American friends, these E's are very, very distracted.
They can get used to it. They'll be fine.
They need a bit of Horilka with that.
Amen and amen.
Well, Axel, you've deserved your well-deserved rest tonight. I'm sure I'll see you over the weekend. Looking forward to seeing you Monday afternoon with our special guest, Stephen Moore, who is, he's been described as the GOP's man in Kyiv. He was a former assistant on Capitol Hill to now Speaker Kevin McCarthy when McCarthy served as one of the House whips. This was before he became Speaker. And he also has a lot of knowledge about speaking to Republicans, changing Republicans' minds about supporting Ukraine. He's a truly Capitol Hill insider. We're really looking forward to that interview Monday afternoon, Eastern Time, beginning at 2 p.m. Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, looking at footages, there are lots of prisoners Ukrainians are taking, which is a good sign, clearly. The morale is upbeat of Ukrainians. And according to some correspondents, this situation with islands in Dnipro, they seem desperate, especially after, for some reason, it looks like after Prigozhin's killing, this correspondent was really kind of down. And he said that like the Russians, they are in Dnipro Island, they are kind of gone. They probably ask for reserves, but there are none to give to them. So yeah, we'll find out in shortly. But what I was trying to understand is there was some information. Maybe I should not pay too much attention on this news, but like the West was asking to kind of put pressure on one direction, and we see that Ukrainians are making a lot of progress in Robotny, but they are also making progress apparently in other places too, like this Dnipro thing, and also Zavetna Bajanya. This is to the east from Robotny. I forgot the what the like Zavetna Bajanya. It's Mariupol direction. So yeah, would be interesting to see if. But those units, indeed, Russians reported that Ukrainians sent a lot of mechanized units now in battle, and they were showing like at least dozens of whether APCs or tanks. I couldn't really. It was not clear, but a lot of units were moving. So that was probably in Robotny, and yeah, they're making progress, which is wonderful. It's just we have to wait until it's confirmed and all that stuff. Hopefully tomorrow we'll know more.
Hopefully tomorrow, Alex. When there's a news blackout from the battlefield imposed by Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, literally nothing gets out. I think they are absolutely amazing. And there is essentially a news blackout, really only a trickle of hopeful news. Alex mentioned surrendering Russian soldiers, voluntarily surrendering, not necessarily surrendering after a fight or putting up a fight, but voluntarily surrendering. And so Ukraine is making progress both south of Orkiv, south of Velika Novosilka, also having success around Bakhmut. The thing that I couldn't figure out, and I don't know, Alex, if you've heard it, or Randy, if you've heard it, or Axel, if you want to pop back up, but the report that Russia is trying to reposition forces all the way from Kupiansk to the Zaporizhia front made my head spin. It's 600 miles or more away. How in the world they would get to Zaporizhia, I have no idea, none whatsoever. And Axel will come back up, but I can't seem to add you. Prince, welcome. Maybe you can do Axel that good deed, and I
I've
see
got
you
him.
did.
Yep. No problem.
Oh, Axel, is that accurate? Russia is contemplating or actually moving forces all the way from Kupiansk, or trying to Zaporizhia?
I have no evidence of this. I've heard these rumors. I can't really believe this makes sense. Sorry, no, I can't believe that this is fact. However, it is possible. So The Russians have moved troops behind the front lines all around by means of rail and road all the time. Is it doable? Yes, it is. Is it cumbersome? Yes. Will it be difficult? Yes. Are they doing it at the moment? I don't see it. There's many conflicting pieces of information in this regard, but I doubt this at this point in time.
Thank you. I found it highly unlikely, but who knows? It's war. Alex, go ahead.
I heard on one, but it was yesterday, that they are indeed moving some artillery pieces, and it can be visible from the satellite. Again, this may be rumors again. I think actually they are desperate. This is strategic direction. I don't even understand why they allowed this, counteroffensive in the north, while instead of putting more kind of to defense.
Yeah, but it's not a real counteroffensive. These are counterattacks, and they are
counterattacks,
localized, and they are there in order to tie up resources, and that's that.
Right, and but I don't think these artillery pieces can make big difference at this point, because, like, Ukraine is clearly winning counter-battery fight. So it looks like Russians are making these desperate moves. Like, in the end, it will be like chicken, which lost its head. They will be flying in all directions. I think it's out of desperation. It doesn't seem like they have a good grasp of situation or resources, or things are falling apart. Yeah, of course, for people, for Ukrainians that are fighting, it probably is not that visible. But when looking from a side, it's for example, there was information today, I think out of SBU, that 20% of prisoners surrender voluntarily, which is quite decent number. And I think there will be more surrenders soon.
Although, without knowing what the total number of Russian troops surrendering is and where those surrenders are taking place, that percentage figure doesn't make much. It doesn't give us much value. 20% of Russian soldiers surrendering voluntarily, and what does that mean? Are they leaving their trenches and seeking out Ukrainian patrols to surrender to?
That's probably what they are doing, because the moment when Ukrainian shows up in trenches, it's too late. Because I've seen again footages, and I can understand there is no time. Sometimes two people are storming a trench, they kill first, and you should be really lucky at that point to have a moment to kind of explain that you are surrendering. It's kind of late. So what they're trying to do is, because they are under constant, attack, there are drones, there are shells, there are everything. They do not see the enemy. They are confused, scared. So sometimes they leave the trench and kind of run, whichever directions they choose. And most often, and this is probably what they say, but they probably know where they go. So they will sometimes even leave weapon and run to Ukrainian side, like showing that, hey, I'm surrendering, don't shoot. It's yeah, it speaks about moral in first place. In terms of number, again, I think most are dead. After the fight, dead, wounded, ran away, ran back. Sometimes they run back and just to find Ukrainians are already in their second line. So it's quite messy. But 20% is in first place. It's indication of moral. It's if 1 out of 5 is actually not just thinking, but already kind of acting to surrender. That's a lot. That's a lot. And consider this, like, we do not really know what was on the mind of 4 out of 5. Like, Ukrainians took them, but in terms of how much, they really cared to fight back, we do not know, really. So
I would prefer, Alex, to see these Russian soldiers melt away and voluntarily surrender, because that will actually save Ukrainian soldiers' lives.
True, but again, the moment when, like, these instincts start to control people is also when, if those people could think rationally and plan their actions, well, some of them do, but if they were in a mass, if they were able to, it would not come to that. They would, like, try to avoid all this way ahead of time. So yes, but still, it's we do not know the losses. Yeah, probably Ukrainian losses are quite high too, but it's yeah. Well, at least those I saw on footages, their moral was really upbeat. They loved it. They took like 7 prisoners. They two guys walking, and telling, making this video. They took 7 prisoners, and I'm not sure. Maybe there was not just 2, but these 2 were visible on this video. But yeah, it's a lot. So again, we are on a strict diet, and we'll have more news later on. But I do have a feeling things are moving well.
Yes, we're on a strict news diet from Ukraine. I should adopt such a strict diet myself, not of news, but of what is packing on the pounds. Prince, welcome. We'll be here for a few hours, early evening here in North America.
Yes, afternoon here on the West Coast, the best coast, the better Portland. That's all I got to say about that. It's just the truth.
I put it more neutrally, Prince. It's simply the other Portland, and unfortunately, visitors bound for Portland, Maine have landed in Portland, Oregon, and wondered how the hell they got there, 2,000 miles away from their destination, not understanding there were 2 Portlands and both cities have airports.
Nothing beats the Isle of Portland, and that's in Dorset. Colonists, you.
The Isle of Portland. We'll both have to visit that someday, Prince, and compare.
That would be something, to try to visit all the Portlands in the world, even just to visit all the Portlands in the United States, because I believe there are more than 2. We are just the best known 2, and that isn't such a bad thing. I do have a question for Randy, if he is still around and available.
Yep, right here.
I'm curious, you had mentioned that you were going to record a video for Republicans for Ukraine, and I'm wondering how that went.
They just wanted a little clip for the ad. They have that ad where they say, I'm Joe Smith and I'm a Republican and I support aid. I'll go ahead and do that. I might do a longer clip that just debunks all the wrong-headed arguments from the fringe of my party. We'll see. I just put up a bunch of stuff about Andy Harris. Was mentioned earlier on the space today. he was co-chair of the Ukrainian coalition. He's from the 1st District in Maryland. His mother is Ukrainian, but he has a very conservative district. And at his meeting 7-8 days ago, he said he didn't see how Ukraine could win now, and he thought it would be time to stop funding. He rolled that back a couple of days later and said he wouldn't vote for the bill without the appointment of an independent inspector general. Now, there already is massive auditing and supervision of the aid. I think that might have been a throwaway line that he could give to his constituents or skeptic, and maybe he's already flipped. But anyway, I just posted his phone number, his office phone number, on Twitter with the talking points to tell him it's the wrong time to pull the plug, and he's absolutely wrong about it being a stalemate. So, and when I tried to call, the line has been busy constantly. So maybe he's getting some serious pushback. He also may have seen polls. I, of course, don't have polls from Maryland or his district, but we've got 71% of the public, all parties included, in the say they're in favor of aid to Ukraine, and that's before the recent battlefield success. So I imagine if somebody's looking at their general election polling data, that most places in the U.S. you're taking a real risk, making some ridiculous point about terminating the aid right now. So I think most people are looking for something for the skeptics, like DeSantis did in the debate when he said, well, he wants the Europeans should give more. Well, I think when the September figures come out of the Kiel Institute, we'll already see the Europeans have given more than the U.S. So I call those things throwaway lines. So I hope Harris is a throwaway line. But anyway, he was the big development. He was the big development on the Republican stuff this week. Plus the fact that the debate, they asked who wants to cut aid to Ukraine, and only the Yahoo guy, the bozo, raised his hand, and DeSantis raised it halfway up and said, well, I want to see the Europeans give more. And I think those kind of positions, they're designed just to keep everybody happy and move forward, because you can promise the voter, the skeptics, things that they're claiming they want that are already done, and it doesn't cost anybody anything. So
I was a little surprised, Brandy, to see the co-chair of the Ukrainian caucus come out with such a statement. I mean, shouldn't he be giving up his position?
Oh, I think he may have, but I mean, I think he did it in a meeting of constituents. And it came on the heels of that Washington Post article where some unnamed source planted, well, I don't think they can make it to media poll, as if that was the whole objective of the war. And that was a calculated leak by somebody. Somebody in the establishment in Washington wanted to, pushing for negotiations, and made that statement. And I rib all the Republicans. I say, when is the last time you made a decision based on something in the Washington Post from an unnamed source? I mean, for Republicans, that's like saying, you got a message from the devil that told you to do it. I mean, that's just so off the radar for our side to listen to something that's in the Washington Post. But so it kind of shamed them. But I think that he had that meeting with constituents just right after that article, and it was on their mind, and they and somebody popped up with that, and he maybe off the top of his head made that statement, but he did seem to roll it back. In the next article, he said his statement wasn't that he was going to vote against aid, but he said without an inspector general, he was good. He said he would only approve it if there was an inspector general appointed. Now there is an inspector general at DOD. Rand Paul in the Senate originally had proposed a separate inspector general just for Ukraine aid, and I initially nobody wanted to do that. But if that's the price of continuing the aid and getting everybody on board, I don't see that's a big deal. All that inspector general is going to do is collate all the audit reports that have already been done by the inspector general, and collate them and check them, and turn around and say, yeah, everything's okay. So I don't think that will stop anything. So hopefully the aid skeptics will that'll be enough political cover for them to just say they'll vote with go ahead and vote with the Inspector General thing. But the thing, we could lose a couple of Freedom Caucus votes, it wouldn't matter. But he was, co-chair of the friggin' coalition, which was amazing. But as I mentioned earlier, you can't get through to his phone number on Capitol Hill, so maybe that might have also been why he suddenly flipped and said, "Well, I won't vote for it unless there's an Inspector General," because his phone's ringing off the hook. But that does work, and people on the space, Raver and CC, have been talking about that, and it really does work.
Yeah, I think you have set off a chain reaction there, Randy. I hope his phone is busy all week long and busy right up until the time Congress reconvenes. To answer your question, when was the last time a Republican took an unnamed source from the Washington Post to form an opinion? I think it was during Watergate. The source wasn't unnamed; it was Deep Throat, and it did convince some Republicans that maybe Richard Nixon was a crook. Well, that was, I guess, a inside baseball question, Randy. But I think that's the last time the Republicans took advice from an unnamed source in the Washington
Yeah,
Post.
well, there was a lot more besides the Deep Throat. By the point when they started flipping, there was a lot of other people coming forward. So, but yeah, that was clever, Alan.
Well, incredibly, I remember the Watergate hearings, and that was just before I went to work on Capitol Hill. Shevchenko, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a question for Randy. I just saw highlights of maybe lowlights of the debate, just little snippets as related to Ukraine, and so there's one who I believe you refer to as the Yahoo, who seemed to be imbibing Russian propaganda and then spitting it back out again. What's your general impression of the temperature in the Republican Party in general, but also with all the other candidates there? I saw Haley and I saw Pence both give strong statements. It looked like pro-Ukrainian statements. But what was your impression from the rest? If you watched more of that than I did, and maybe I don't know if that came up on the program, the live streamed program that happened to be on at the same time with a different candidate, I guess.
Well, Tim Scott's been fantastic. He's been fantastic from the very get-go. Really, everybody up there, the two questionable ones were Vivek and DeSantis. DeSantis's problem is the first congressman that endorsed him is Chip Roy from Texas, and Chip Roy's been a critique of aid to the Ukraine for some time. I have no idea why, because he's otherwise kind of Reagan, kind of a Reagan type guy. I just don't know what gets into these people. So I think maybe Chip Roy had some influence on DeSantis, and the Heritage Foundation that ran that misleading ad about Hawaii and the amount of aid and all that I debunked on Twitter. DeSantis had met with the Heritage Foundation about his foreign policy stuff. So I think he was perhaps overly influenced by them. But I think he's also seen the polling data. And if anybody, whoever our nominee is, if they're against aid to the Ukraine, they will lose. That is going to be an absolutely dreadful position to take in a general election. So I think as the realization of that comes, they're shifting. Now, Vivek says that 9/11 was an inside job. and a whole bunch of other things. Kind of the stuff the wacko IT guys come up with that don't have any. They're very smart on some things and completely uneducated on others. And I couldn't do what they do. Those were the only two. And the fact that DeSantis didn't say he would, only said he wanted to prod the Europeans to do more, I thought reflected a big change in his position. And he kind of only raised his arm halfway up like he wanted to speak. Vivek was the only one on the whole stage that said he's going to cut the aid. And not even Donald Trump says he's going to cut the aid. He has this crazy idea he's going to force a peace plan, and who the hell knows what he'll do. Anyway, I think that we're seeing in the candidates the reflection of what the polling data is. Vivek dropped a significant amount of support after the debate. He was listed in the polling data and the approval-disapproval polling after the debate. He took big hits. And I think it'll probably end up knocking him out of the race, along with some of his other screwball positions. That's kind of, Haley was fantastic. Her answer, if you saw the clip, it was one of the highlights of the debate, where she laid into Vivek and said, "You're supporting a murderer over democracy," and and she went on about all the other countries that are giving proportionally more than the United States, and what a tiny part of our budget it was, and how important it was. And she was the foreign policy expert among the assembled candidates, and she did an excellent job. I don't think she has a lot of chance, but we'll see. A couple of those people, there were 8, and maybe 2 of them are going to end up vying for the position to take on Trump. So we'll see.
So, but do you agree that for Haley, that essentially, after this successful fight, Brahmin versus Brahmin, or white force against dark force, and say kneecapping this bastard, sorry, this guy is not serious, and everybody who has listened to him now in the debate knows. If you didn't know it beforehand, now you know he is not serious.
Oh, he was gonna cut the aid off make a deal with Russia that he'd cut the aid off if they'd cut off relations with China. It's like insanity. It's like a 5th grade kids. It's like a 5th grade kids plan for world peace or something. It's that level of sophistication. It's amazing. Anyway, I think Nikki Haley's
she's a VP,
chopping him up on that.
Candidate, by means of her positioning.
I think she very likely could be. She's extremely smart, and she would be quite good in that position. And she would be, since the main thing that the president does is foreign policy and defense, she'd be fantastic.
So what about Christie? You don't like his chances, I know, but what about Christie from your perspective? I think he is still rock solid.
No, he has no chance in the party.
That's true. But
is he?
Will he do the same thing as last time he did to the little boy from Florida?
Yeah, he can. They expected him to do that. He described his encounter with Rubio as a murder-suicide. He murdered Rubio but committed suicide for himself. So I don't.
So he and Rubio ran into it.
Yeah, I think that if he's on the debate stage with Trump, it will be a fantastic show. Regardless of your political, if you watch it sometimes like I do, just like as a political analyst, just for the theater, it would be a great show. I don't think that Trump's going to dare be on. I think Trump's going to try to avoid ever be on a debate stage.
But that's my point. So let me ask a couple of questions, Rennie, because that's the key thing. Everybody wants to see someone to actually stand up to Trump, and the only guy who's pugnacious, smart, fleet of foot, and willing to bloody mud catch if necessary, that's Christie.
Yeah. Now, what we may see, what will probably happen is will be interesting in the next debate. I don't even remember when it is, but it's a ways off. It would be interesting if that sort of devolved into the de facto race, which may be DeSantis and Haley, based on the poll trending, really vying to be the guy to take on Trump, and Christie on the stage to eviscerate Trump, while those two present their their image, their vision for what they want to do. They're positive, and they let Christie be the hatchet man. That could very likely happen. And he could just use his time in the debate just to go after Trump. But I think generally DeSantis probably won't. Everybody's wondering why he won't go after Trump. Haley went after Trump in 2016, and it hurt her a lot later. And she might have even gone further. She might have even had a shot in 2020, but no, that hurt her because she was one of the holdouts when it was already pretty obvious Trump was going to be the nominee. So, I just don't think Haley maybe she'll catch fire, but I think the challenger will be Haley or DeSantis. The rest are just not going to do it. It's also a question of fundraising and name recognition and being a veteran enough candidate to have the ground game, we call it, everywhere and be organized. And DeSantis has been doing that very well. Haley, people tell me, I heard her staff is fantastic and she's got some heavy hitters and they know what they're doing. I don't know about her fundraising. I imagine the debate will help her fundraising. And DeSantis has got a lot of money.
Okay, he's got a lot of money.
So
Other people had as well in the past. Money is never the issue.
exactly.
Money you could
No.
you
It's
just said
not.
catch fire. So is DeSantis the Scott Walker of 2023?
I don't think so. I think Scott Walker was completely went to his level of incompetence. He just wasn't ready to run for president.
Out of his depth, as opposed to DeSantis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. DeSantis just dismantled it. I mean, Florida was a toss-up state, and he just dismantled them politically. So, and that's why a lot of people, will say the other side will say such bad things about him. Is he's very, very that doesn't take anything, and he also doesn't make a lot of unforced errors. He's that like Trump is always stepping on his his whatever tie, let's say, and DeSantis that won't do that. So he's just very much on message.
I mean,
and there's a lot of discipline.
Don't get me wrong, Randy. I hate the modern incarnation of Disney as everybody else, because it's shite. Okay, it's absolute trash. But still, going after Mickey Mouse. I mean, you can pick your battles, can you?
Well, no, but DeSantis's point on this, and it's a good one, is I'm domiciled in Orlando, okay, and my son worked at Disney when he was much younger one summer in school. I've probably been to Disney World, 30 times, including last February, and Disney was the only one that had a special district like that. Universal Studios is flourishing.
Randy,
all the other.
That's not the point. The communication, the communication associated with the case is blown out of proportion, and it pits him into.
Oh yes.
That's what I'm saying. That is an unforced error. If you're like Ronald Reagan, like Teflon, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's true. You could say it looked a little petty. But if that's the only thing they got, that's not gonna. Well, let's just say with the Republican voters, that won't hurt him. That won't hurt him at all. In fact, you'll see most of Trump's attacks on him are from the left. Trump is using the left's talking points to go after DeSantis. We always wondered if Trump was never really a Republican until he decided to run for president. He's just Trump. He's just his own, he's his own deal. He's not a reliable member of any party, I don't believe. But so, yeah, we'll see. It's it's discouraging to see Trump with the lead if you're, for Ukraine and you want